Can we test the phone connection, make sure that I am connected properly?
Good morning. This school board operational meeting of the School Board of Broward County, Florida is now called to order. I'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. In order for the meeting to operate within an appropriate professional environment, at this time, we respectfully request that all cell phones and other electronic devices either be turned off or put into the silence mode. Please step out of the boardroom if you need to answer a call, as talking on cell phones during the meeting is not permitted. Public comments will be accepted on all agenda items in the following manner. You had the opportunity to be able to provide your comments here live at the KCW Wright Administration Building at 600 Southeast 3rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301. In accordance with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines, each person will be required to wear a face covering for their nose and mouth. Individuals are responsible for providing their own masks and to remain at least 6 feet from other attendees upon arrival as they enter the KCW building and until his or her departure. Any person who submitted written comments regarding their noticed agenda items to Naomi Gutierrez, our supervisor for official school board records, at 600 Southeast 3rd Avenue, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301, or by email to publiccomment@browardschools.com, no later than 2 hours in advance of this published time of the school board operational meeting. Anonymous comments were not accepted. Therefore, each written comment must have included the person's name and address. As we prepare to begin our operational meeting, we are reminded that our vision is to educate today's students to succeed in tomorrow's world. Our purpose today and every day is to achieve this goal. At this time, may the chair please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the following meetings: June 23rd, 2020, regular school board meeting, and September 15th, 2020, special expulsions.
So moved, Rupert. Second.
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Ms. Aladeff. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as listed, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The minutes are now approved. I just wanted to note that we do have one board member who is on the line with us, Ms. Good. She is out due to family medical. Are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have the following proposed changes to the agenda. Personnel recommendations for non-instructional appointments and leaves for the 2020-21 school year. That's item G3 is revised. G4, personnel recommendations for non-instructional separation of employment and discipline for the 2020-2021 school year. That's revised as well. And GG1, MOU between the School Board of Broward County, Florida and the Broward Teachers Union, education professionals, and the education support professionals is an added item. BB1, annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools, added. DD1, investigation report, Championship Academy Charter Schools, additional information has been provided. EE2, recommendation to approve agreement for school resource officer program for the 2020 to 2021 school year is revised. And the final revision is JJ6, replacement of 2 air conditioner handling units at Fairway Elementary School in Miramar as part of the SMART program renovations. Madam Chair, we have no other proposed revised agenda items.
Thank you. And those revisions have been uploaded online, correct, Mr. Moquin?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. The changes to the agenda proposed by the superintendent are accepted by the chair after being determined good cause has been established for said changes. May the chair please have a motion and a second to close the agenda?
So moved, Rupert. Second.
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Ms. Aladeff. All in favor of closing the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. So the agenda is now closed. The school board will consider agenda items in the following order. The school board will first identify any consent items. Those are our single letter items that are on the agenda that will be pulled for separate discussion. All remaining consent items that were not pulled for separate discussion will then be approved by consent. The school board will next consider G3, followed by any other G items that were pulled from the agenda for discussion. After the G items are considered, the school board will proceed in accordance with the agenda's lettering system. The school board will consider any consent items, which are single-letter items, pulled for discussion for a given letter, and then consider any open double-letter items for the same letter. The meeting agenda has been modified to correspond with this order. The only exception to that is today we will be taking BB1 after the G3 item. So we will take G3, and then we will move to BB1, and then go in accordance with the lettering system. The next item of business is the consent agenda. This is the time the board members advise the chair of those items that they wish to address. Subsequent to this, the chair will ask if any members of the public would like to have an item pulled which has not already been pulled by a board member. All those items not pulled for separate consideration will then be approved under the consent agenda. For the following consent items, are there any board members that would like to discuss? G3 is already pulled, so any E items? I'm sorry, G items, yes. Ms. Levinson? Sorry.
G4 and G6, please.
Thank you. Ms. Alhadeff?
G1, please.
Okay. And any other? Yes, Ms. Rupert. I have to learn
G4.
to look all the way around in a circle now, sorry.
G4, please.
G4. Thank you. Okay, any E items? Yes, Ms. Levinson?
E1.
Okay. Any I items? Yes, Ms. Rupert?
I1, please.
Mhm.
And for staff, it's just a positive comment.
Okay, thank you. J1? L items? Sorry. I'm sorry. That's okay. I items, Ms. Levinson? Okay. J1? No one? L items? Okay. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak to an item that has already been requested for discussion? Yes, it's Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh. E2? E2 has been requested. Are there any additional from the, sorry. At this time, may the chair have a motion and a second to pass the consent items that have not been pulled for discussion?
So moved.
Second, Rupert.
Thank you. Dr. Osgood has moved it, second by Ms. Rupert. All in favor of approving the consent items, the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. At this time, will board members please identify the open items they will be asking questions of staff. This will better manage staff's time by letting them know which open items we intend to address. GG1? Yes.
Madam
Dr.
Chair, I'm
Smith?
sorry, we have a member of the public that would like to speak to I-4.
I4?
Yes.
Okay. So I need to open the agenda again. Can I please have a motion to, again, open the consent agenda?
So, second, Rupert.
Moved by Ms. Bartleman, second by Ms. Rupert. So I4 is being pulled as well. Thank you. And it's a written comment. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, all those in favor of closing the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you very much. Thank you for that additional comment. So at this time, we're going to go through the double letter items. GG1, BB1, CC1. Yes, I have Ms. Rupert and Ms. Levinson.
Thank you.
DD1.
I have that one.
Yes. EE items, Ms. Levinson.
E4 and EE4 and EE5.
Thank you. Ms. Rupert, sorry, Ms. Bartleman.
3.
EE3. Yes. Ms. Brinkley.
and EE5, please.
EE2 and 5. JJ items. I'm sorry, FF. JJ items. Yes, Ms. Levinson?
Yes, I would like JJ3, JJ4, and JJ5, please.
Okay. Ms. Brinkworth, did you have your hand up? No. Okay, and LL1? Okay, thank you. JJ4, Dr. Os, oh, 3, thank you, Dr. Osgood. Okay. Yes, Ms. Holliday? I'm sorry? BB1 is an open item, so we will be calling it, yes. As we begin taking items for the operational meeting and the public having the opportunity to speak to these items, I ask to remind the public that speakers are advised to refrain from obscene or vulgar conduct, slanderous remarks, or statements that intend to incite violence or breach of the peace. Speakers are reminded to demonstrate proper decorum and model the district's 8 character traits: cooperation, responsibility, citizenship, kindness, respect, honesty, self-control, and tolerance. May the chair please have a motion and a second to consider G3.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Is there audience input on G3? Hearing none. My colleagues, is there any comment on G3? Seeing none, all those in favor of G3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. G3 passes unanimously. Thank goodness. We are back live for Mr. Chisholm. Mr. Chisholm, we're going to join you. Congratulations on G3. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. So with that,
I don't have my list, so you
I
can
do
read
not
it.
have a list either.
Ms. Court?
Was there a list provided? And it was. Yeah, I know, but we just, okay. Do you want to
can-
start, Ms.
I don't have
Rupert
mine. You can
Bartleman?
do-
Oh,
you
you
can
don't
do
have
them
your, okay. So I will, yeah, I was going to say, I don't think, all right, so I will make our announcements. Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. So our new temporary assignment working out of classification as our supervisor for Food and Nutrition Information Service Systems, Arif Ali. Our new workers' compensation medical case manager, Pamela Belay Shaw. Our temporary assignment for working out of classification as our program manager, nutrition education and training, Zoe Crago. Temporary assignment working out of classification for our supervisor of logistics and relocation services, Omar Garcia Diaz. Our workers' compensation for medical case manager, Candace Glazer. Workers' compensation claims adjuster, Michelle Hyatt. Temporary assignment for working out of classification is our process analyst, Vanessa Jimenez Manzanero. Temporary assignment working out of classification as our supervisor for logistics and relocation services, Attilio Leone. Our temporary assignment for working out of classification as our senior process analyst, Deanna Lochin. Our director for school security support services, Michael Medina. Curriculum supervisor for specific learning disabilities, Keandra Pierre Ilford. Our workers' compensation claims adjuster, Danette Powers. Project manager for safety, security, and emergency preparedness, Edward C. And finally, for today, our workers' compensation medical case manager, Teresa Shepard. Congratulations. Yes, Ms. Rupert?
Thank you. I forgot to pull this, but it works out fine. I would like to congratulate Pamela Bailey Shaw, who happened to be my workers' comp case manager. When I went through it, she is fantastic, and I'm very happy for her. So congratulations to all our candidates. Thank you, or now employees.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I would like to take a, is there anyone in the room still that was just appointed? Normally, this would be the time that you go out and take a picture, but I guess, no, I think we're all good. Okay, perfect. The chair, please have a motion and a second on BB1.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on BB1. So I'm not going to, Mr. Moquin, I'm just going to let you, because we do have public here, if there is a written comment, I'll let you, but I'm not going to ask separately for each one, just so that you know to interrupt me if there is one, okay? So BB1, seeing no audience input, to my colleagues is, oh, sorry, we do have public comment.
I'm assuming BB1 is the superintendent's evaluation.
It is.
Okay. Just making sure. All right, so the superintendent is evaluated, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida, and I think that this mask is fogging my contacts. So hopefully I can see. The superintendent is supposed to be evaluated on 4 different constructs: leadership, high-quality instruction, which has more to do with probably the chief academic officer and the teachers and the students, continuous improvement, and communication. The facilities task force, to provide a specific example of what this is supposed to be and what it's not supposed to be, the facilities task force recently received a memo that impacts several of these criteria, not the least of which is appropriately interpret and execute the intent of board policy. This memo was signed by the superintendent and also is a violation of policy 5.9, which is in direct conflict with what his job is supposed to be about. Furthermore, it would represent a violation of state statute 1001.51, section 14, as well as 7. Section 14 puts the responsibility on the superintendent for making sure that rules are followed, not broken. That's not what he's supposed to be doing. Then, by extension, by doing nothing, which is so far what has happened since 9/15, since this memo was put out, that amounts to nonfeasance on the part of the board, but you may not be aware that this is going on yet. This memo, there are also state statutes protecting employees. Understand that part of this memo reads as follows, and no other advisory has been subject to the restrictions and conditions in this memo. It is not legal, it is not enforceable. People have been denying that it was communicated to staff or what was communicated to staff. The memo says, no other district staff member or district contracted vendor will be permitted to communicate with any member of the FTF. I don't know what that says to you, but that says that I can't talk to my children's teachers. We have members on the task force who are teachers. We have a student who can't talk to his teacher. And I'll get more into this during the committee report because we absolutely discussed this memo at the last meeting. But understand that this thing is violating so many things, and to date, the only response I got from general counsel.
Dr. Lynch-Walsh, I need you to bring it back to BB1. This is not open general public comment, please.
Okay, but again, the superintendent, this speaks to communication. This speaks to, again, appropriately interpret and execute the intent of board policy, accurately evaluate senior staff performance. From a continuous improvement standpoint, let's see. Well, it's continuous improvement. If he wasn't aware that he was breaking it, he should be making himself aware now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on BB1? Yes, Mr. Moquin.
Yes, Madam Chair, we received one written comment from Andrew Grubb, Weston, Florida. Dear Madam Chair, as you know, I do not think very highly of our superintendent. As the colonists did to King George III, I will list my grievances in regard to the evaluation of the superintendent. 1, failure to implement the recommendation from the 2011 grand jury to establish an independent office of Inspector General. 2, failure to fulfill the contractual requirement to evaluate his direct reports. 3, failure to oversee a PMOR, which resulted in $60 million down to the drain to CBRE Erie, and a program that has made minimal progress yet is more than $500 million over budget. 4, failure to maintain open channels of communication with bargaining units, stakeholder groups, and school-based staff resulting in individuals hearing news from Scott Travis of the Sun Sentinel before their supervisor. 5, failure to prevent the chair from removing the words capital facility plan as a contractual requirement from the needs assessment deliverables on February 11, 2014. 6, failure to comprehend the impact of a statewide grand jury and place a gag order on staff, which was retaliation against the facilities task force. I will end with a quote with one of the greatest documents on my computer, the VB1 item submitted by Mrs. Aladef in March of 2019. Had he evaluated his senior staff as required and established an infrastructure that ensure other administrative staff were accurately evaluated and provided feedback, the safety improvements cited in the 2013 letter to Senator Sobel will have been implemented appropriately. The Smart Bond program would not be years behind schedule and hundreds of $millions over budget, and the Evergreen recommendations would have been implemented with fidelity. Mr. Runcie's performance is unacceptable. That concludes Mr. Grubb's written comments.
Thank you. Any additional written comments? Okay, so that is our audience input on BB1. Now to my colleagues. Is there discussion on BB1? Yes, Ms. Holodeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as a board, we need to give Mr. Runcie direction on improvement as we move this district forward. As stated in the executive summary, the evaluation process is intended to communicate clear goals and expectations for the superintendent's performance. It was noted that upon reading my colleagues' evaluations, there were many similar comments. We need to focus on 4 key areas of needed improvement. Achieve superior outcomes in education during COVID-19 era, fiscal responsibility for the Smart Bond program, creating a safe and secure environment, and dramatically improve communication. Number 1, achieve superior outcomes in education during COVID-19. We need to show the community how we plan on building their trust by providing a high-quality education and limiting the COVID slide, especially in math and reading. Could one simple fix be that we put in policy to require students to have their cameras on in the e-learning environment? We need to be constantly having robust and honest conversations with key stakeholders like BTU, BPAA, students, teachers, and parents to see what is working and what we need to improve on to make change. We successfully gave most students a computer. However, if students are both not logging on and physically not coming to school, then they are not learning. We must be accountable for every single student. Losing one student is too many, and we cannot allow anyone to fall through the cracks. Number 2, fiscal responsibility in the Smart Bond program. Almost 6 years later, we only have 16 Smart Bond projects completed out of the 236 projects. This is unacceptable. It is paramount that we hold Mr. Runcie accountable as a strong and united board of 9. I appreciate Ms. Bartleman, who was spot on when she spoke about the Smart Bond in great detail in her evaluation. Mr. Runcie needs to hold district staff accountable to their essential performance responsibilities, monitor their follow-through, conduct and document through staff evaluations, and ensure that policies and procedures are constantly followed. The program manager needs to be in compliance with the scope of services in their contract. Regular audits will help to hold them accountable. To improve accountability, enforce the financial penalties of the contracts for SMART project delays. Our students do not reap the benefits from the SMART program due to significant delays. And ultimately, the taxpayers in the future are going to be paying more in taxes to compensate for Mr. Runcie's mismanagement. Appropriately interpret and execute the intent of board policy. The Facilities Task Force advises the board reviews progress of construction, especially tracking whether projects are on time and in budget, advises the board of potential problems, and reports to the board per policy 7012. Policy should be consistently applied amongst all committees and give them a liaison with the expertise in the respective area. This did not occur with the Facilities Task Force. We should not be limiting their ability to perform in the fullest extent of their role in this committee. Mr. Runcie needs to work with the Facilities Task Force to find a solution that allows for Facilities Task Force to speak with all staff and find a way to capture the information in an organized fashion. We should not be limiting their ability to communicate. Number 3, creating a safe and secure environment, of which I discussed many in my evaluation, but will touch on 2 issues now. There is $17 million authorized by the school board for intercom system upgrades. This needs to be expedited. Communication is key in an emergency situation. One timely example affecting us now as a consequence from SMART program delays is only 13 out of the 216 HVAC projects are completed. HVAC projects need to be completed yesterday to be able to install the highest filter level to fight against COVID-19. Number 4, dramatically improve communication. We need a crisis communication specialist. The lack of communication or the wrong communication creates this ripple effect of uncertainty in our district and creates this negative culture and loss of public trust. One example at our last school board meeting after the approved reopening dates for bringing students back to our brick and mortar schools, it was asked for an update of the 2020-2021 school calendar to immediately be sent out to reflect the changes approved. A confusing tweet went out with the title, "Returning to Campus, Proposed Dates for a Phased Pre-K through 12 Return." Proposed means to put forward for consideration. The board just voted unanimously, yes. It cannot be assumed that everyone watches our meetings. What should have been sent out was the official color-coded 2020-2021 school calendar, which should have been updated and sent out immediately. Mr. Runcie needs to follow through to make sure this happens. Another example is a letter sent out recently to teachers about ADA accommodations that they received their request late and won't be considered for the request. Apparently, this request was sent in error. This creates additional stress to an already stressful situation. Please know that my evaluation of the superintendent is reflective of his actions and has nothing to do with the hard work of our students, teachers, staff, and administrators. I know and immensely thank our teachers, staff, and administrators who have been working overtime and going above and beyond to deliver a successful education to our students in an e-learning environment. I am very disappointed that Mr. Runcie lacks the ability to self-reflect on constructive criticism in his evaluation. A strong leader would look to try to continuously improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from my colleagues? Ms. Bartleman?
Yes, can we just dispose, because this wasn't my evaluation, so it is appropriate. Facilities task force members are allowed to speak to teachers and other people, right? That wasn't your intent.
I'm sorry, ask the question again?
For Mr. Runcie, I just want to, because this is like confusion, email confusion. I've been sending it to Ms. Myrick. Can you just put on record what you meant by your letter regarding the facilities task force so we can just be done with this?
No, we can't.
But it's
Actually,
in my
that is not-
evaluation.
That is not, what your evaluation is not for
It is,
Mr. Runcie
I
to be
marked,
responding to
I
an
marked-
individual issue on the facilities task force.
okay, that is an issue in my evaluation. It is, I can give you the page if you want it.
I don't
And
need it, Ms.
and it needs to be
Bartleman.
resolved.
We are staying on topic. To be honest with you, all of us could have mentioned anything we wanted in our evaluations and then decided to have a conversation.
I'm not asking for a
about all of those
conversation. There is
topics.
a serious concern by one of our advisory committees that they don't think they can communicate with teachers and staff. Can't that be easily resolved? I can't get an email about it.
At a BB1 item, yes, the answer is it can be, but not during our BB1 item.
Okay, so let me ask you something. When it comes to responsiveness and communication, I have sent multiple emails to Mr. Runcie, to Ms. Myrick. I need to have something that I can give to the facilities task force so they understand what their roles are. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay, so we're not going in depth in this conversation. You've made a request, so Mr. Runcie, if you could please follow up with Ms. Bartleman outside of this, because we are not going through this conversation in the BB1 item.
Okay, so Ms. Korn, when it comes to responsiveness, I just want to point out that I have sent multiple emails. I will copy you all on all of the emails asking for clarification on this memo over the last 2 weeks. I have put it in my agenda item, and I have not received a response satisfactory, nor has it been communicated with Facilities Task Force. That goes into directly the evaluation of the superintendent and everything involved with being responsive to the community. And this is something that could have been resolved very easily with one memo, and it wasn't. So I think if you read my evaluation, it speaks for itself. It talks about the lack of communication, the lack of effective communication. It speaks to my issues with the Smart Bond program, which I have documented in here. I feel very strongly I'm leaving the board. And I know that everyone on this board is committed to completing this bond program. And I hope that you will continue to hold the program manager and Mr. Runcie accountable to getting this done. The last bond program we had was in 1984. And it was a debacle, and it was followed by a grand jury. And we weren't able to get a bond program again to 2014 because of that loss of public trust. This bond program needs to be completed. Part of my evaluation stated very clearly that I was very upset that we had to take out cops, not to do new projects that we all know that there were $2 billion of need in the bond program. And we knew we couldn't do every single project. But the fact that we are now using all of our reserves, and we took out an additional loan that the taxpayers are going to be responsible to pay just to cover the existing program and not new needs, is very upsetting to me. So I have put every audit, and I'm happy that we do have these audits, which are outside audits, and I hope we continue to have them. I have referenced the Atkins assessment, which now has it at $536 million over. I have asked repeatedly for what projects are left on that Atkins estimate. I sent one last night again. I asked very clearly at the budget hearing, and I was told I was going to get a response as to how much money we have in outstanding projects that have not been brought before the board. This is as can be done. If I had the Atkins spreadsheet and which projects haven't been brought before the board, I could do it myself. So before I leave, you guys, I'm going to ask Mr. Runcie to either give me access to that, because I don't understand why this question can't be answered. It's very easy to do. I was guaranteed by Ms. Marte and Omar Shim at the budget hearing that I would get that answer, and I did not get it, and that goes to my frustration with lack of communication. That's a very simple question that has not been answered to date. And I hope that everyone will hold the new program manager accountable. I also hope that everyone will look into the roofing situation. I know Mr. Runcie is looking into that and has been looking into it. But when a vendor stands up and says he charges Broward County 35% more because of our lack of payment and because of our process, that's a cost to taxpayers because of our inefficiencies. So I know he's been working very hard on getting the payments out. Ms. Marte has. I have documented the vendors. I withheld the vendors' names. I can share those with the board members if you want to know which vendors did not receive payments in a timely fashion or how it was held up. I also have the people who were at that meeting. But bottom line, the public deserves better when it comes to this bond. And I am very afraid of the impact it's going to have, not just on the ability to get a new bond, but the ability for a new referendum, which we're going to need for teacher salaries, which I did note in my evaluation. He has done an outstanding job with the referendum. All the money is being spent where it needs to be spent. It's going where it's supposed to be, and there's great accountability in that area. I also thought he did an outstanding job with the pivot to online instruction. I think there were lapses in communication that occurred, but I think that our staff has worked incredibly hard. Our teachers have worked incredibly hard. I think the lesson learned for me as a board member, and I hope for Mr. Runcie, is that through all of this, the teachers have not felt valued. They are scared, and it is a fear. And I remember talking to Mr. Runcie about this one day. We were talking about how the teachers are scared, and I said, look, everyone is scared. We're in a world pandemic. I can't even get toilet paper in Publix right now. I don't know what toilet paper has to do with the pandemic, but there are fears out there. And I feel that we have not done a good job eradicating the fears. Up until last night, they were unaware whether or not they could have plexiglass and their own air purifiers. These are real fears, and these are the people that are going to be interacting with our children every day. And we want them to have they can't see the smile, but we want to see the smile lines in their eyes, and we want them to be comfortable with our students, because that's what's going to make the experience great for the students who are in the classroom, but if they're there scared and don't feel comfortable and are worried every day, it's not going to be a positive experience for anybody. We know the most important.
Ms. Bowerman, please bring it back to the evaluation.
I am. I'm getting there.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is because, again, we can speak about lots of different things in the district. We need this conversation to be targeted to our
It is.
evaluation, please.
It absolutely is. I'm talking about the teachers and how they feel because of what's happened under the administration. So, I mean, if you don't want me to, like, that's not important. The most important, they're the largest employee
I did not
group.
say that's not important, Ms. Bartleman. I'm going to tell you right now, what I am asking is that of you and my colleagues, that we speak specifically to how we are evaluating Mr. Runcie on these issues. Please bring up every issue you would like, specific to evaluation of Mr. Runcie, not generic, general comments.
This is not a general comment.
And my statement to you has nothing to do with it not being important to me. Do not make statements like that, because otherwise we're going to end the rest of your comments. So please continue along the lines of the evaluation of BB1.
I am. Okay, so this goes back to our teachers and our staff and their morale and how they feel. They're the most important factor in a student's learning. And based on the emails, the videos, the social media posts, our teachers do not feel that safe, and they don't feel safe going back, and this has to be improved upon. And so, Mr. Runcie, I need you, and I honestly believe that Mr. Runcie cares about our teachers and has their best, wants everything to be okay for them. But for some reason, the communication that trickles down is just ineffective. The teachers, it makes them feel terrible. And so this has to be improved upon. I'm not going to be here to help you guys with that or to fight for them or to tell you what they feel. But that's why I'm saying it now, because we all get the same emails. And Mr. Runcie needs to be responsive to the teachers and the staff. And that's not happening. So I touched on the bond. I touched on the staff morale. The academic performance, Mr. Runcie's done a lot of good things with the expansion of programs. I really appreciate his focus on mental health. I appreciate him getting the nurses in the schools and focusing on the whole child. I was unable to give him highly effective in this area because I did not have the scores that we usually use. Usually I base it on the scores. And so I gave him effective because I didn't know what those scores were, but I anticipate that Mr. Runcie will direct staff to work very hard on the COVID slide and make sure that happens. As it pertains to the communication, which I'm going to get back to again, I gave an example of a communication, and I don't know how many of you read my evaluation, but it was something very simple that could have been handled. And this is why I gave him the rating he did. And I think that this example shows the problem with our communication in this district. We had a school board meeting. We said these grades are opening up. There's a video of it. The next day, a tweet goes out, and one of the grades is missing, second grade. If you watch the video, or it says second, you can see that Ms. Corn's remarks at the school board meeting did not mirror Mr. Runcie's remarks in the tweet. We even got emails about it because you were all copied on them. A second grade parent said, is my kid going? Is he not going? I don't understand. I got this memo. I watched the meeting. What's going on? At 3:30, and I'm assuming that the reporter got the same emails we were getting, emailed our staff and said, what's happening with second grade? Is it going back? Is it not going back? It would take 1 minute to answer that question. 1 minute. It's not a big deal. There was no evil intent behind it. It was a simple mistake. They got the standard response, oh, thank you for your communication, we'll get back to you. That's ridiculous. You have asked this board repeatedly to give you additional positions in the communications department because you felt it was understaffed and we didn't have enough people. We have been criticized by the teachers and everyone for, putting in these positions and how big the salaries are. But we did it because we thought it was important. But something as simple as this couldn't be addressed and makes us look ridiculous. All somebody had to do was say, this is the answer. This is my problem with this district and the communication. Things like that happen all the time. I gave numerous examples in here. MRSA. You can go through. I have every single email in here. Okay? Just, it has to be approved upon. It can't be like this confrontation, especially when it comes to areas of health and areas that are important to our parents. It's unacceptable, quite honestly. And then people get mad because on Twitter we look ridiculous. We deserve to look ridiculous. If somebody had just responded, that would have never happened. So Mr. Runcie has got to hold his staff accountable for communicating. And the second part of his communication is that he's very good at communicating the big picture and the goals. The problem occurs is when that communication trickles down to the school level or the department level. We have all said this on the dais at some point, that by the time it gets to the classroom or the teachers, it doesn't look like what we said here on the dais. It's not just with communication, it's with implementation of computer programs, it's with implementation of academic programs, everything. It has to be consistent, and there has to be some sort of accountability system put in to make sure that it is consistent. So my hope, Mr. Runcie, is that you will continue, I think, besides the communication lapses with our parents and our teachers, our staff has worked very hard getting the schools open, getting them prepared. I appreciate you letting them use the plexiglass and the air humidifiers. But again, that delay just caused turmoil for our teachers and staff in their lives and stressed them out. And then we get accused as a board of why don't we care? Why do we care if they buy their own plexiglass? I get the safety issue, but like as one of our school psychologists said, 4,000 people a year die because of a fire, but over 200,000 people have died because of COVID. She said she'd take her chances on the plexiglass. So I hope that you will continue to provide strong leadership in this area, mend the relationship with our teachers and staff right now, and move forward so that every student can receive the best education based on his or her individual needs. And more importantly, as a taxpayer in a month, I'm going to be monitoring the SMART bond to make sure that it is completed and we can stay under that $536 million mark. I think if you look at the last 3 years of evaluations, every single one of them had every audit in them that I documented the case as to what's going on. And we have to continue to hold Mr. Runcie accountable to get that done, because it will impact this district for years to come, 1984 to 2014. Think how long the community took to forget what happened with that bond for us to earn the privilege of getting another one. So I look forward to the new program manager. I look forward to the changes Mr. Runcie has made. I have 537 pages here, including documentation of every audit. I would also, with the Auditor General, we do not get a closeout form. This is really important. We don't get a formal closeout form. I had a discussion with our chief auditor, and based on conversations and they're not responding back, the P cards and everything have been closed out. But when the Auditor General comes in the next year, because it's every 2 years that we follow up to make sure that those are definitely closed out, because those were outstanding. And we need to make sure that we are accountable for taxpayer dollars. So thank you, Mr. Runcie, for the leadership you've provided during COVID. And I look forward to you rebuilding the trust with the teachers. And I just hope we move forward in a more positive fashion where the teachers feel valued. Thank you.
Do I have additional comments from my colleagues? Okay, Mr. Runcie, I believe you wanted to share some comments or a statement.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just first want to thank the school board members who provided feedback that recognize the hard work and accomplishments of our teachers, our ESPs, our administrators, bus drivers, custodians, food service workers, all of our employees. I also want to thank you for your advice on areas that we can focus on to improve outcomes. Your efforts and collaboration and continued guidance illustrates what healthy and productive public service looks like. Unfortunately, however, there were documents received from some board members which I believe do not constructively evaluate the work of the district, but misuse the evaluation form and process for their underlying grievances rather than reflect on the tireless work being done by our employees. So to provide some context, I'm going to share the following. We try to do retreats to learn from and try to improve as a school board. So on January 30th this year, we had a professional development retreat for the school board, which was facilitated by a national expert who came highly recommended and provides training to school boards all across this nation. He made an observation and this statement during that session that we had. As school board members, you must answer this question. Am I more interested in living out my grievances and frustrations and harming children than changing my behavior to create the conditions for the success of children? It is a profound question that speaks clearly to our purpose and the essence of what servant leadership is all about. In our business, I believe true leadership is putting the needs of others above your own, including your grievances, to do what's in the best interest of our 260,000 students and the families that we serve. Because it is clear that this guidance was not heeded in some cases, I felt compelled to write the following on the evaluations provided by some board members. The assertions represented in this evaluation are not reflective of my performance. Moreover, they are inconsistent with the progress that has been made by the hard work of our students, teachers, staff, and administrators. I will continue to serve this community to the best of my ability and stay focused on our core mission of educating all students to reach the highest potential and succeed in tomorrow's world. There is so much misleading and erroneous information in some of the documents. I only have time to comment on a few. First, to assert that a decline of 8,700 students is somehow a loss of public trust in the superintendent, to me, is baffling. The fact is, almost every large district in the nation has experienced such declines, many greater than what we've seen here in Broward. I know this because I'm on weekly calls with the 70 largest school districts in America, many of which are experiencing enrollment declines of 5 to 10% or more, primarily in the primary grades because of the challenges of distance learning in the COVID era. Moreover, in the Tri-County area, in South Florida, we've seen the same thing, where there's been a 22,000 student decline, including more than 8,000 in Miami and 6,000 in Palm Beach. Second example, it was also asserted that when we had to abruptly shut down in March, somehow the district should have anticipated this coming and be better prepared. Well, I know of no district in Florida, America, and the world that anticipated this pandemic. We are better prepared than most districts because of the work that we've been doing over the past several years. We put in an infrastructure in place with single sign-on, a learning management system, and created a blended learning environment in Broward that gave us a really good head start. So we were able to spend the summer doing professional development and helping our teachers to improve their ability to engage students with the tools in our e-learning platform. And I think the feedback that I've received from parents, students, and everyone is that that was successful and we're doing it better than most. We've also worked diligently to close what I call opportunity gaps, making sure that every student who needed a computer had one, those who needed internet access to get discounted internet access, or that we provided free mobile hotspots to our students with housing insecurity and significant financial challenges. We continue to address food security. Between March and the end of summer, we served over 3 million meals. We continue to provide social, emotional, mental health services. Our social workers like never missed a beat. They provided it. They had over 36,000 or so referrals, did over 160,000 interventions. They kept and continued to provide services. There's a comparison that's constantly being made between Broward schools and Miami-Dade and how they opened schools this year. I think that's all clearly misplaced. Unless I missed something, the evidence is clear that the work we have done throughout this pandemic, in the face of the enormous challenges that we face, has been recognized locally, statewide, and nationally as a model for other districts. I know because they contact us on a regular basis. We were the only district in the Tri-County area to start the school year on time. We did not experience ongoing and persistent technical issues. We had a platform and infrastructure in place that was developed years ago that is now serving us well. And we significantly improved the e-learning experience from last March to the start of this school year. The assertion that Broward County Public Schools has saddened a board member in the domain of high-quality instruction is at odds with the improved graduation rates, improved student achievement, decreased achievement gaps, and drop in schools classified as at-risk for the 2018-2019 school year, the last year for which we had that data. Asserting this is an area of concern in the absence of data for the 2029-2020 school year, I think is disingenuous. In the domain of exceptional student education, there are several mischaracterizations. First, this board closed out the Evergreen Report in the fall of 2018. And by the way, the Evergreen Report was something I asked staff and this organization to do so we can better address the needs of our ESE students. For it to be cited in September 2020 as a point of concern is something I don't understand. That can also be said for the Collaborative Education Report that was done in 2018, which was addressed prior to the start of the last school year. And the continued use of single anecdotes to establish systemic issues is done repeatedly. These are just some of the challenges that were there. But most importantly, I want to use this moment to let all of our staff know, all of you who are working hard to bring your best effort to the district each and every day, that I see you and I appreciate all of your work. I want to let our teachers, staff, and administrators know that such statements are not reflective of your performance or how hard you're working under very difficult and unprecedented circumstances to meet the needs of our students and our families. I truly believe that you are the best in the country, and I am proud to be here working with you in this great district. Never lose sight of the fact of what we are doing and why. Not only do we give children and families hope, but we strive to give them the best education we possibly can. Of course, parents have a deep and treasured hope that their children will receive an educational experience that will allow them to be successful wherever their dreams and their hard work will take them. We will remain relentless on delivering on this promise for every student, in every school, in every neighborhood. You help me to turn hope into reality for our students every day, and for this, I want to thank every one of you. I want to thank the school board members that continue to work in a collaborative fashion so we can deliver on these promises to our families and our students. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, all those in favor of BB1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ms. Good, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So it passes with one no vote. So may I please, at this time, we're going to move to our committee reports. Our committee reports may have up to 5 minutes each. And when you come to the podium, if you could please just identify your name as well as your committee. And we'll ask again just that everyone please keep their masks on during their committee reports. So with that, our first committee. Whoever would like to start.
Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh, Chair of the Facilities Task Force. The Facilities Task Force held its last regular meeting on Thursday, October 1st. Discussion included the following. Big 3 update, Blanche Ely. We were joined at this meeting by longtime Blanche Ely activist Ms. Ernestine Price for the update on the ADA wheelchair lifts at Blanche Ely. We knew from Twitter that the lifts had been installed. At the meeting, we were told they were being re-inspected the following week, but there was no date yet for the county inspection of for the elevator. We were told the ADA bathrooms were finally operational. Ms. Price reminded us how important it is to fight for equity for all students. We'll be following up on the stage lifts and the gym lift inspections and hope to see her in the Blanche Ely Gymnasium soon. We also heard concerns about the lack of a bus loop and discussed how ADA projects funded pre-bond were delayed due to being rolled into main renovation projects. Why the Facilities Task Force exists. The group discussed Governing Policy 7012 and a 1998 Sun Sentinel article that described the intent behind reinventing the task force as a powerful force advising the board rather than the construction department, and stemming in part from a 1997 grand jury report that accused the board of rubber stamping whatever the construction staff suggested. The result, widespread waste and mismanagement. According to the article, board members have said they do not have the expertise to do much else but trust the advice of the superintendent's staff. The purpose of the discussion was to clarify the nature and purpose of the task force for new members, the new program manager, new staff, and anyone else who might have been unclear on the committee's purpose. The superintendent's memo. We discussed the memo and its contents and the email sent by the chair to General Counsel Barbara Myrick, who is obligated by Florida Bar's Rule of Professional Conduct, Chapter 4, Rule 4.1.13b, violations by officers or employees of an organization to follow a prescribed course of action when officers or employees violate board policy. The only response from Ms. Myrick was to affirm the superintendent's authority to assign a liaison, which was itself problematic as he does not do that for any other advisories, and the new liaison lacks the subject matter expertise afforded other advisories. The executive director asserted the reason for the memo was to streamline communications between FTF and staff. However, the memo did not change the communication necessary with OCP staff, only who was going to now be communicating with staff. The chair explained to the group the memo followed an incident with the executive director, and that's likely the catalyst for the memo. Because the memo stated no other district staff member or district contracted vendor will be permitted to communicate with any member, he was asked how the implied threat was communicated to staff. He said he sent staff an email forwarding the memo. When asked how it was to be enforced, he said we would see and didn't comment further. We await the results of the public records request related to this email. This conversation led to the ACOM organizational chart, which did not reflect the relationships prescribed in the PMOR scope of services and contract. We discussed the Office of Capital Programs and how they were supposed to interface. The ACOM program director said the chart would be changed to reflect the team structure. We passed the following motion. We recommend the school board amend the AECOM organizational chart to include the directors of construction, pre-construction, and program controls in the same box as the executive director of capital programs under the Office of Capital Programs. They were in a separate box off to the side, talking to no one, just like us. Policy 1001 and quorum. At the 9:15 school board meeting, a number of advisory chairs expressed concern about the physical quorum requirements. We share the same concerns and pass the following motion. We recommend the school board enact School Board Policy 1001 emergency rules to reduce the number of advisory members required for physical quorum to 3 or a number acceptable to all advisories as soon as possible so we can conduct business the rest of the school year. The rest of required quorum to be virtual. Passed unanimously. As far as Stranahan goes, we asked about a decorative trellis because there seems to be a very tight budget where that's concerned. We are following up on the action plan from the program manager and the Office of Capital Programs for improving substantial completion dates for Big 3 and other most critical schools. We reviewed the substantial completion analysis showing most projects had slipped anywhere from 30 to 730 days behind schedule over the past 2 years. This suggests A, the November 2018 rebaselining dates were not realistic, B, no program management happened the past 2 years, or C, both A and B are true. The red dots below the x-axis represent the number of projects that have slipped, and that's the vast majority of them. The ones on the line are on schedule, and the few that are above the line are ahead of schedule. We also looked at Banyan Elementary, which questioned the veracity of the substantial completion date. The project doesn't have a sub-permit for roofing, but has a September 2020 substantial completion date. That's not possible. This report was transmitted to Dr. Neesmith, and since I won't get through the rest of it, hopefully he'll transmit it to the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our student advisor provide her comments. Gianna. Can we get Gianna's microphone on, please?
Thank you for allowing me to give this report. My name is Gianna Alaman, and I am the student advisor to the school board. On Monday, members of the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee are meeting with Superintendent Runcie to discuss questions and concerns they have about their schools or Broward County in general. The student members are very excited about being able to have direct communication with the superintendent. Our Broward County Association of Student Councils is holding an online ethics forum in November where we will be providing students the opportunity to identify and discuss ethical issues to enhance their decision-making ability. Overall, students still have reservations about returning back to brick and mortar school and are waiting to see what happens. Thank you again.
Thank you. Sorry, whoever's next can join the microphone. She had just asked if she could speak, so I was just giving her the opportunity.
Good morning, Board Chair Korn, Superintendent Runcie. Anna Fusco, Broward Teachers Union, speaking on behalf of Broward Teachers Union. Our committee report, what we feel needs to be said. I would appreciate no interruptions, no criticisms, and no cut downs. I'm going to give that full disclosure. Okay? We are getting ready to get back into brick and mortar starting Thursday with our teachers that are able to return and all of our support staff, and then expecting student population to walk in on Friday. You all know that I still disagree, that you should have folded and gone on with this date. I felt you should have stuck with the plan, that you had some wonderful staff, work countless, not just hours, not just days, not just weeks, but months, presented it to the DOE, and they accepted it. And however, the political piece that was coming back and forth, you all know because of the Broward Teachers Union standing up, calling a press conference, making it clear to Richard Cochran, Governor DeSantis, and Chevron Jones standing by our side and making countless phone calls to have a conversation with Mr. Cochran, that that's how it happened. Even though I appreciate some of you that stood up and spoke, that you felt that it wasn't going to happen, I really wish you would have still stood behind that it wasn't going to happen. And we would not be entering into brick and mortar on Friday with the students, because we know that everything is still not done. But I do know it will get done because of the rank and file in Broward County Public Schools that are working beyond their hours, weekends, past their time frame to get it done. That's not just people in the Broward Teachers Union bargaining unit, that's everyone else in other units that are making sure it gets done. So now they have to work overtime and extra time and countless time and have the impact on them, and then still get in there Friday with all cheery and bushy-eyed and getting ready, which they will do, which they have done. They have stood up for this Broward County public school system and have made e-learning that was new to everybody, which is now successful. And we do know that there's still a large population, not the majority population, that need to get back into brick and mortar. We just have been expressing it, that they need to get back in when everything is done, ready, so we don't have to make the news like other counties. Look at this problem, look at this flaw, look at this hiccup. If we would have just done what we said we were going to do and get it done. And I need you to take notice that you've got certain upper management that work against the unions instead of getting it done. It would have all been done
if they would have worked with us more collaboratively. I don't think it's fair that the public out there says the union had 7 months to make the plan. That's not our position. That would be the people that work in the Broward County Public Schools and the district leadership that are tasked to do that have been working with not only Broward Teachers Union, but with FOPE and with the Principals Association and COPA and every other group and parents and community involvement and community leaders and organizations that Superintendent Runcie brought in to give tons of input. And it should have been received and taken. And we would have been ready a while ago. And there wouldn't have been so much pushback that we still need more time. We just want people to walk back in. They need to walk back in knowing that they're safe and healthy. Please don't roll your eyes up there at me. Don't do that, Levinson. That's not appropriate. I'm talking on behalf of people. You don't want to hear me say things that are real. And I'm going to give the courtesy because people have called me and pleaded that I not say certain things because it's gut-wrenching to them. But when I tell you, I go to bed with people crying, I wake up with people crying, that is true and matter of fact. And you should care. Not just say it, show it. That's what caring does. You put more emphasis on getting extra cameras in a classroom than getting extra safety and health components in a classroom and in all schools. And now people are scrambling. I need you to do better. All the time. You chose that position. Do better.
Thank you. Do we have other committee reports? Okay.
Madam Chair, we have written committee reports. We have 2.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So the first written committee report comes from Myra Rodan Gassaron, the chair of the Human Relations Committee. Good morning, honorable school board members and Superintendent Mr. Runcie. I'm honored to come before you on behalf of the committee to present our committee report. We commend you for your efforts in working so diligently alongside your superintendent, staff, our students, our community, and your advisory committees during these unprecedented times. As chair to the Human Relations Committee, I would like to thank you and the superintendent for appointing your designee, adult or student, to the Human Relations Committee in a timely manner as they work together with an appointee from the superintendent, Human Relations Council students, and the Human Relations Council's advisors. Our membership participation is essential. It allows this committee to have an equitable, diverse, and qualitative governing body that can effectively review policy and procedure. We serve as a resource for human relations for Broward County Public Schools, as reflected in our Human Relations Committee Policy 1.51. Before I continue to provide our committee report, I must bring to your attention that moving forward in this capacity as an officer of your advisory committee is incredibly difficult for your advisory members to participate and work at full efficiency. Our policies for advisory committees, such as Sunshine State Law and Robert Rules of Order, require us to look at how we, the advisory committees, can do our jobs during these times and restrictions. In order to follow CDC recommendations, many of your advisory committee members are simply not able to comply with each of these segments, i.e. quorum and attendance. I'm very aware that this is not new news. I felt, and the members that I represent feel the same way, it is necessary to once again, for public record, state that it is dangerous for us to conduct business at this time in groups and in enclosed buildings. This requirement to meet in person and abide by the rules and laws that govern our business as advisory committees are non-inclusive in many ways and inequitable in itself. Therefore, as we move forward in the heavy task before you to maintain the system working in the best order possible, please consider your advisory committees across the board. Keep them closer to you than ever before. Many of us are volunteers that work very hard to assist you and eager to do so to help our kids and the community and our social climate as a whole. Therefore, when School Board Policy 1.7 comes before you for revision consideration, we respectfully ask that you keep in mind the aforementioned. Thank you. Human Relations Committee report. In brief, we report that the Human Relations Committee will be addressing the following topics this year: continued concern for the safety of all members of Broward County Public Schools and the climate in which they have all been directed to work in, i.e. COVID-19, computers, and the digital divide. Continue school board approval of equitable and inclusive school calendars, i.e. Broward County Public Schools calendars for school year 2021, school year 2021-22, and the ongoing school years, etc. Please note, the Human Relations Committee applauds the board for your excelling support and inclusivity of your community, your constituents, and the sensitive needs of students and staff, and the recommendations of this advisory committee. At this time, the committee has denoted.
I'm having a hard time hearing the speaker. I'm sorry. This is your sign language interpreter.
Sorry, so I believe, Ms. Good, are you still on the line? Because I think your phone is unmuted. Perfect, thank you.
At this time, the committee has denoted an inequitable conflict on the proposed 2021-2022 school year calendar on May 3rd, 2022. The committee respectfully recommends that this day be a day off. Moreover, in an effort to maintain a cohesive annual school calendar for years to come, the Human Relations Committee requests that the school calendars remain equitable and inclusive, not just for 1 year, i.e. this school year 2020-2021, but consecutively every year. Should you require a point of reference for this topic prior to your next meeting or workshop with the calendar committee, please attain a detailed review of the minutes discussing the approved school year 2020-2021. Furthermore, as we presented during our committee report last year on this topic, testing dates from the Cambridge College Board and advanced placement are flexible, but need to be addressed immediately should there be a conflict on the days to be found as inequitable and non-inclusive of our school calendars. Lastly, the committee will address mental health for all members of the Broward County Public Schools. We look forward to working with this board and superintendent as we continue to support equity and diversity in our public educational system. Thank you. And the last committee report comes from Jackie Luscombe, Chair of the ESC Advisory Council. As I have reported many times throughout the summer, I represented for ESC Advisory on the BCPS Reopening Task Force and its ESC subgroup. I raised many issues, put forward many questions, and joined with others in working through dialogue on some of the stickiest challenges we knew would arise for students with disabilities. With 4 days to go before students at ESC centers, clusters, and SVE classrooms return to campus, many parents remain none the wiser about some of those very issues we identified in that group as being in need of resolution prior to any return. Parents had to complete a survey last week still with little info. Matters that were flagged in July and August as needing resolution and definition remain unclear. These are children who most need a well-structured and orderly return. These are children who were rightly identified by the superintendent and the chief academic officer as those in most urgent need of returning to campus and those for whom e-learning was the least beneficial. They were flagged as a priority group and recognized as having unique needs. Among parents who chose to have them back on campus, there was excitement and relief at the prospect of finally being able to do so because of the serious social and academic regression. Yet many are now finding that those unique needs will not, in fact, be met on campus, and that their children could even be worse off if they send them back because they may not have the help alongside them that they need. Some parents have been told that their children with profound intellectual and developmental disabilities, as young as pre-kindergarten age, were required to learn on computers as they return to classrooms, and they must be able to operate them independently. Equality is giving everyone a parachute. Equity is giving everyone a parachute that actually works, not just some of them. For some of our most challenged students, if they must operate a computer independently, they're being handed the parachute that doesn't work. Some parents have been told at school level that teachers cannot assist the students and students cannot leave their designated areas. Students who simply cannot be expected to function this way. Services and support facilitation remain virtual. Parents have been denied permission to have their registered behavior technicians and board certified behavior analysts, BCBAs, alongside the children in school. Parents have also been given conflicting, inconsistent, and tardy information on a number of issues such as mask protocols for students with disabilities generally preclude their ability to wear them, as opposed to parents who don't wish their kids to wear masks on ideological grounds. Distressingly, some parents have been actively discouraged by teachers and other school personnel from returning the students in phase 2. The need to reduce foot traffic and minimize contacts on campus is of course critical to protecting the lives and health of all involved, and it is clear that phase 2 is a transitional phase that has to be implemented with care and caution if we are to stay in the hope of schools progressing to a broader, more comprehensive reopening under phase 3. There has been exceptionally hard work by a great many people. Their work is appreciated, and the challenges everyone faces are undeniable. There are many compromises that need to be made in a pandemic, but our ability to help the most vulnerable members of our school community cannot be one of them. Thank you. And Madam Chair, that concludes the committee reports for today's meeting.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we will move forward with our next agenda item. I'm sorry. Oh, Ms. Rupert, sorry.
Sorry, we got to get a system here. I don't know if this is appropriate now, but I believe the board should be having a conversation on the advisory organizations and quorum, because several of them are having difficulty meeting that aspect. So I would ask through the superintendent that this comes up sooner than later, or if it goes through Barbara Myrick, I'm not really sure which way, but Mr. Runcie.
Thanks, Ms. Rupert, for bringing that up. Mr. Moquin and Mr. Nesmith, I know, are working on this. In fact, I think you met with the advisories yesterday, actually. So if you could just give, through the chair, if we could just give a general.
And I think Ms. Myrick also is going to provide some assistance on the
thank you.
topic.
Barbara Myrick, General Counsel. Unfortunately, because advisory committees advise the board and are not just fact-finding committees, they are required to adhere to the same rules and regulations regarding quorum as the school board is being present. So therefore, currently the governor's order allows committees and school boards and cities to meet remotely with the quorum not being present.
Right.
But if the governor stops that executive order, the advisory committees, it's not in control of the school board. It's in control of statute and case law and attorney general opinions that the advisory committees will have to meet with a quorum being present.
I appreciate that. Also, isn't the Bond Oversight Committee having a difficult time with that as well, Mr. Moquin?
I don't know specifically about the Bond Oversight Committee. I know that there are some members down, but this issue started to raise. Dr. Nesmith has been meeting with the chairs from the advisory committees and looking at 1.7 and bringing some additional clarifications and changes forward to the board through the rule adoption process. The issue of quorum came up previously under bylaws.
Right.
It came up again as we started to begin transitioning, or it looked like we were going to be transitioning back to physical meetings. And so it started coming up before October, before the governor did extend it through October. So it's really not an issue for October. But what they're asking is they're looking for the board to pass an emergency policy that allows them to have a minimum number of people physically present and then count like virtual attendance towards a quorum. And I just don't know, you know, we'll continue to work with Ms. Myrick. I just don't know that that's feasible.
Right.
So I appreciate the issue, but I don't believe, and I think what we just need to do as staff is get back to them officially with you know, official communication through legal that says that. But that's what their ask is. Their ask is to have a minimum number of people present physically, and then to have virtual attendance count towards quorum.
Gotcha. So would you know when the last time the Bond Oversight Committee actually met?
So
It met 3 months ago. It just didn't meet this Monday night, but it met 3 months ago, I believe. I was there.
So 3 months ago.
It meets quarterly.
Yes, I get it. So we're just behind a quarter.
Yeah, it was supposed to meet Monday, and apparently it didn't have a quorum. This
Okay.
past Monday, it just,
Help me, Ms. Gorin.
So I think Ms. Marte wanted to add something, and then we'll come back
I'm sorry, I
to.
didn't see you, Ms. Marte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Rupert, my office is the staff liaison. Mr. Shim in my office is the staff liaison for the Bond Oversight Committee. Given that the governor has extended our ability to have virtual meetings through the month of October, Mr. Shim is currently repolling to try to get a virtual meeting as quickly as possible.
I appreciate that.
But I am sure the board is aware we had an unfortunate death on that committee due to COVID, and we had a more senior member of the committee retire.
Right.
So, yes, we are down. Omar's working with Mr. Moquin to get those vacancies filled as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you. And I don't want to take up any more time than this, but hopefully, Ms. Marte, you're also addressing if we need to be adding, not we, because we don't do this, add to that committee new members or whatever that process is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we're going to now move forward with continuing. Yes, Ms. Good?
Yes, just very quickly, I just want to thank Ms. Rupert for bringing that comment forward. I had also heard from some committees as well, and understand, how we're somewhat limited with statutes. So I just ask that we continue to work with the committee members so that they understand that once this emergency order is lifted, their quorum would only count present unless there's something else that we determine. And I'm going to have to sign off. Again, my father is having surgery, and I apologize for having to leave the meeting at this point in time, but I just wanted to thank my colleagues for their efforts today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So at this time, we'll take our next item. May I please have a motion in a second on G1 and G2?
So
I'm
moved.
sorry. G2 has been passed. G1.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Ms. Alhadeff. Audience input on G1. Seeing none, to my board members, I have Ms. Alhadeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have 23 teachers leaving on instructional leave, and we're hiring 8 substitute teachers. So my question is, do we need more substitute teachers, and have we looked into trying to raise their base pay from $11.27?
Good morning, Board Chair, Mr. Runcie, board members. Susan Rockelman, Director of Talent Acquisition. So yes, we are now opening up to start clearing substitute teachers, so we have slowly started to begin clearing them. We recently sent out a survey to all 3,100 of our current substitutes to see who would be available to want to return to the brick and mortar building as we start opening up school on Friday. So we have received those responses, and we are sending those responses out to our schools so that they could start contacting them to prepare for the situations where they will need to have some substitute coverage in. For the rest of your question.
And then my question was about raising their base pay from the $11.27.
Right, at this time, their base pay has not been raised.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Bartleman?
So I know you're in on all the emails about the staff restructuring and stuff. As people leave, do we have the ability to put the teachers that may or may not, because of budget and the population in those positions, how does that work? And how many teachers is that? Because I've been getting the emails all morning. I'm not really sure what's going on. I don't know if you're ready to address that issue with the principal saying, that some of the teachers may have to be let go from the school. But since we are having all of these and we are kind of in an emergency situation, can't we do like a direct link so they can fill these positions while, and still get some sort of payment and remain on the payroll?
Yep, Board Chair, would you like me to address that?
Please.
Okay, so as you have seen in an email this morning, we are in the middle of meeting with schools to prepare for next week's FTE week and making sure that we are in compliance with class size. So what that means is that some schools will be having to realign some teachers. They will have some grade level changes, some subject area changes as we meet class size. In addition, as we all know too, our student enrollment counts are down severely than previous years. And as in every year, we continue to always realign teachers and move them around to fill other schools' positions where there are vacancies. So yes, schools are being directed to go ahead and start making their schedule changes, so they are in the process of doing that. That might leave a teacher without a schedule. If there is a teacher at a current location that does not have a schedule, yes, they will be used to fill those gaps for those teachers that are requesting accommodations, maybe taking a leave, maybe resigning, maybe retiring. So right now they are kind of in a holding pattern of not having a schedule at their current school. They are still employed. Nobody's being told that they do not have a job until we see what things, how things structure out for the next few weeks, and then we will revisit it.
Thank you. I think that will make people feel better, and hopefully we'll be able to keep everyone. So I appreciate that. Thank you for answering that and getting that on record, and the emails will hopefully stop at this point then. Thank you.
And Ms. Ruckelman, if you could just, in the point you clarified, that the employee, if there's a teacher who does not have a schedule, they're still employed at that school, or they're employed at the district level so that they may be utilized at another school?
At this time, they are still at that school until we assess the situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there additional comments on G1? Hearing none, all those in favor of G1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. G1 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on G4? Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Brinkworth. Audience input on G4. Hearing none, to my colleagues, Ms. Rupert.
Thank you. I wanted to mention Cheryl Hodson-Toller, who was a very hardworking AP at Blanche Ely High School. And the reason that she left, I wanted to bring up. She left for lack of an opportunity for advancement. And this is someone who had many years left that she wanted to work for us. And I was very saddened and shocked by this because she has a tremendous amount of respect throughout this district by her peers. So, and the children. I mean, honestly, every morning she would say, "Good morning, Tigers." I don't have the voice to do it, but the lack of an opportunity for advancement. I think we need to look at this, and I wanted to call my colleagues' attention to this issue because I see that women of a certain age who still have a lot more to do, and I'm going to use one really great example, Leslie Brown. She wasn't 21, 25. She had a lot to bring, a lot to do, and she's now in Louisiana as a superintendent. So this really saddened me and actually shook me. And I know she's going to move on to the next aspect of her life. But I wanted her to understand that she'll always be a Tiger in my heart. And nobody should leave for a lack of opportunity for advancement from this district. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Levinson?
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize Paul Masinski, longtime committed, dedicated principal of Tequesta Trace Middle. The community will definitely miss him and his service, and I wish him the best in his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bartleman?
Yes, I just wanted to recognize Mr. Dorsett, who's retiring from Linear James. He's been an amazing person the last 16 years, and the whole Dorsett family. And so I just want to congratulate him and wish him health and happiness. And thank you for working with some of our most vulnerable students all these years.
Thank you. Seeing no additional comments from my colleagues, all in favor of G4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. G4 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on G6? Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on G6? Seeing none, to my colleagues, Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. I actually want to recognize the incredible work done by staff this year. The out-of-field number of teachers are down 22%. When you look at elementary, it's down 13%, ESE 22%, ESOL 30%, gifted 32%. And special shout out to the gifted staff, because I know every year I bring up that item, and for it to be down a third, there's been a lot of good work done to make sure that our teachers are certified in those areas. Science is down 40%, which is incredible in that subject area, and many of them have Science 6 to 12 certifications, but have now moved to high school where they need to get other. So a lot of them already have a strong science background, even though they're out of field, technically. That was it. I really just wanted to mention the incredible work that's been done this year to lower that amount of out-of-field teachers, and this is a particularly difficult year to be able to have done that. So congratulations to you, Ms. Rockelman, and everyone else in the district who works on this.
Thank you. Seeing no additional comments, all in favor of G6, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. G6 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on GG1?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Osgood, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on GG1? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, we have several written comments.
you
I was
do?
just waiting to see if there was anybody.
Okay. I saw you turn around, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I don't see any from the public coming in, so Mr.
Our
Murphy.
first comment is from William Bridger from Coral Springs, Florida. Hello, please help keep all the buildings safe. Make sure that there are plexiglass on teachers' desks and on the tables or between students. Each room needs an air purifier. Also, please make sure that no more camera or technology is purchased for e-learning. First of all, we don't know how long this stage of COVID transmission will be happening. This might end in the near future. This is a lot of money to put into this purpose, plus many teachers do not want to use it from what I hear. Thank you for your time. Second comment comes from Maria Harrison from Hollywood, Florida. Good afternoon, BCPS and school board. It has come to my attention that BCPS has little to no plans to improve the air quality in our schools as our teachers and students return to classrooms. As taxpayers and parents, we have the right to feel safer if we think more mitigation is needed. Our one definitive way to improve air quality in classrooms is to use standalone air purifiers. Mrs. Fusco has asserted that Mr. Runcie and Donna Corner are against the use of air purifiers in classrooms because they believe that if air purifiers are placed in classrooms, then teachers will become lax in social distancing measures and mask wearing in the classrooms. I find this utterly absurd and completely insulting to our teachers who are returning to classrooms. As a parent, I want a standalone air purifier that is independently certified to capture viruses in my child's classroom. I am willing to pay for it and the replacement air filters. At present, it is my understanding that teachers must submit an ADA form to use an air purifier. That is an undue burden on them when clearly the reason for wanting the purifier is to mitigate the spread of COVID and other viruses. Make it acceptable for all teachers to utilize standalone air purifiers in their classrooms without the ADA approval, and better yet, redirect the $13 million you are asking for in cameras to purchase HVAC and other sanitation equipment and staff. Please acknowledge receipt of this email. The next comment, the individual did not provide their address, so I will not be reading it. The next comment comes from Nicole Cross from Southwest Ranches, Florida. Good afternoon. I signed authorization for my daughter to be evaluated in April 2020 for the eligibility of EBD. The psychologist was able to complete some of the evaluation over the phone. She has portions, she said, she needs to be in person. Will the school psychologist be able to complete her in-person evaluation component in Phase 2 e-learning? It is to my understanding that there has been no changes in evaluation needs to be completed in 60-day timeline after consent has been signed. I am looking forward to your reply. Regards, Nicole Cross. The next comment comes from Frank Zaraligi, who is from United Quality Solutions Incorporated. Why are the vast majority of teachers requesting disability leave to work from home? Have these teachers disclosed disabilities in their job applications? The next comment comes from Kate Grasshopper from Western Florida. My taxpayer money needs to be spent on things that will help teachers like plexiglass and air purifiers and students, not that will financially benefit board members. The cameras are a waste of money and their use is not agreed to by parents. We have never signed any document allowing our children to be participants in a Big Brother Broward edition to be watched by parents and family. The teachers didn't sign up for that either. This district can't keep images of its teachers from being spread on websites like 4chan by children of white supremacists, the same ones Cassandra Freed is welcoming to take over the Cypress Bay PTSA, by the way, but expects us to believe it can keep the stream from these cameras from being redirected. This is a joke. I ask that this board refuse the request for an additional $13.5 million for cameras and use that money for PPE for our students. And that completes the comments on GG1.
Thank you to my colleagues on GG1. I don't see any. If I could, Mr. Runcie, there was a media opportunity this morning at one of our schools at Hollywood Park Elementary, and I know you took the opportunity then to be able to share regarding the air quality. I know yourself, myself, and my colleagues have all been vocal about ensuring that we have measures in place. Could you just speak to those, please?
Sure. You know, as far as air quality is concerned, that question has come up repeatedly in this room and from board members and teachers and others, and we have essentially identified a number of things that we've done in this district. One, starting last year, especially in the spring, staff moved in place to accelerate and prioritize the completion of work orders that were being done by PPO for the HVAC systems. In addition to that, the HVAC systems, as we indicated, are being outfitted with the highest rated MER filters that will fit on the units. And that work was done earlier this year, but we're going to redo it again on all of the HVAC systems prior to the start of the school year. And then finally, if there are cases where there are concerns about air quality, as we've always done, our environmental safety unit works with an independent, I think actually it's maybe 2 or 3 independent organizations that come in and test and provide recommendations based on the outcome of those test results. So we're making sure we put everything in place so that the air quality is as best as it can be. So those are some of the initiatives we put in place, and yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak briefly on the collaboration, obviously, in getting us to this place, specifically around the healthcare component for those who are retiring, as well as for our new hires, especially in this pandemic time. This is a critical piece. It was obviously an expensive piece as well, but it's something I know that we as a board have discussed through this with support to ensure that we're able to provide that coverage as long as possible, knowing that obviously there are some financial aspects to it. But I want to applaud BTU and our staff for finding a place in which we're able to support through a benefits coverage those who are retiring longer, as well as those who are joining us newly as quickly as possible. Additionally, I wanted to also thank staff, even with this amended calendar, to continue to look to achieve the planning days. This is something that I mentioned to Mr. Runcie very early on, just between us, and I know this has been an ongoing part of the conversation. So as we adjusted the calendar, being able to still recognize that those planning days are critically important for our staff, as well as certainly our teachers for their classrooms, but then even administratively as we go through the phase-in. I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to work through any kinks that we may see as we continue to invite more and more students on our campuses and work through those, being able to listen to our educators as those students are re-entering our schools, any interactions that they have that may need us to make some adjustments at the school level. And on that vein, I guess I would just ask that as we were flexible during the e-learning, that we continue that flexibility, Mr. Runcie, which is what I've seen so far. There are going to be many things that come before us that were either not anticipated at this point or needed some additional time for us to be able to address them adequately. And so items like plexiglass and others, as we go through this process and there are recommendations or requests that are being made, I would just ask that we continue to look into them, make modifications when necessary. Again, we did that through e-learning in terms of the scheduling, especially for our youngest students, and I know that we've already done that just in this reopening process. I would ask that that conversation and dialogue continue. So with that, thank you for bringing this forward. All those in favor of GG1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. GG1 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on CC1?
So, second?
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on CC1.
Yes, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. I was just actually reading CC1, and there's just a point of clarification because this seems to confuse everyone. The conflict of interest form versus the acknowledgement form. The conflict of interest form, Form 8, is if you have an actual conflict of interest, which not everybody does. The policy itself, one of the purposes listed in TAC, one of the bullets, says maintain strategic relationships / communications with all BCPS departments and divisions involved in systemic technology-related initiatives and procurements. I don't see any restriction being applied to TAC that they cannot communicate with any staff. In fact, this says the exact opposite of the memo that was sent to the Facilities Task Force. Again, underscoring the disparate treatment of the Facilities Task Force as compared to any other group. And then number 3, the CIO or appointee at director level above shall attend all TAC meetings in a non-voting capacity. The Facilities Task Force policy has a number of people from different departments who are non-voting members of the Facilities Task Force. But apparently, we're now not allowed to speak to any of them. I cannot restate what this memo says. There is nothing for us to interpret. I can only go off of what is on the sheet of paper. And what is on the sheet of paper for TAC is the exact opposite of what is on the sheet of paper that was sent to the Facilities Task Force. It is very clear that TAC is meant to interface with all these different departments. It is very clear from the memo sent from the superintendent to myself, the chair of the Facilities Task Force, that no other member of staff is allowed to speak to any member of the Facilities Task Force. So how in the world that's consistent with the goals of a board-established committee is beyond me, when here today you're about to approve a policy that clearly shows the opposite intent. You cannot have different rules for different committees without that being a violation of Policy 5.9. You just can't. I don't even understand how this memo ever slipped off of his computer and somebody hit send. It is beyond my comprehension why General Counsel is doing nothing, especially in light of knowing that you have
this
a policy. Yes, this policy demonstrates without question the disparate treatment, which disparate treatment is a violation of the anti-bullying policy. And when you have an officer violating the anti-bullying policy, your general counsel is bound by the Code of Professional Conduct, as stated by the Florida Bar, to do something. Do something.
Thank you.
Kenny Minshew, I'll be donating my time to Anna Fusco.
Thank you.
Hello, Anna Fusco, Broward Teachers Union. Would like to talk about this agenda item where we feel that, not sure how we got to this point or why we want to continue with this point, that we need to bring in this type of extra technology. And I know you're all going to say it's not just for cameras, but we know at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and the dust settles and you think people aren't listening and they're not paying attention, you're going to squeeze them in like you squeezed in the other 5 million of these certain type of cameras that are only going to make it so much better in the classroom for the students that are choosing to stay remote, which they have that right to right now, especially when we're still in a pandemic. We can never forget we're still in a pandemic. Our number one leader in the country contracted COVID last week. And if that doesn't give a solid show that COVID is real, because we watched it across the country, him rushed to the hospital. And beautiful doctors and staff took care of him.
Ms. Fusco,
back to health.
I got a point. To be on policy.
I got a point. There's a point. See, Donna, you do that all the time. That's just not right. So I have a point to let it be known that we're still in a pandemic, that COVID-19 is real. People are still contracting it. People that feel that it wasn't real and it can't happen, it happens. And that money should have been put towards what we called an emergency, to where everything is put to where our schools need to have safety measures. And adding more type of camera capacities to open up the classroom to the bird's eye view from people. Notice I didn't say students, people that are also able to watch in now in classrooms where it is safe havens. We speak wholeheartedly that our classrooms are safe havens.
So Dr. Neesmith, stop the time for a minute, please.
Our governor said it.
So, Ms. Fusco, this topic is policy and bylaw for TAC. So we're not
I know exactly what it is.
Okay, but I need you to speak to
We
the
have people that
policy
sit,
and bylaws.
We have people that sit on the committee.
Okay, I understand, but so we're speaking specifically to their policy and the bylaws of that committee, not the agenda items.
You know how sometimes a
So, Ms.
teacher has
Fusco,
a
what I'm gonna
teachable moment
suggest is,
to give the message, to bring the
for
point?
instance,
That's what us teachers do in a
our
classroom.
last topic was on the MOU, which would have been something that would have related. It doesn't relate here. I'm more than happy for you to bring this
You may
topic
feel
up.
it
It needs
doesn't
to relate
relate,
to
but
the item.
my
Please
teacher-
tie it to the, that's what I'm asking you to do, is tie it to the item, please, if you could. I stopped the clock, but
You don't need to stop the clock. I'm just going to sit here for my 4 minutes because it doesn't matter what I say.
Okay.
You want to speak over me, you want to speak through me. I have a rationale to the point, but you didn't want to hear it. When I leave out here, everybody that's watching this now, they'll watch me on Facebook Live, and then I'll make sure I get exactly what I need to say. The school board members should be receiving what especially the Broward Teachers Union president needs to say on behalf of everybody in Broward County Public Schools. And you want to think you could squish me. Well, you're not squishing me.
all right, can you just stop the time for a minute, please? Beacon, if you can please, if there's any feedback. Thank you.
Is there a reason why it's facing me that way? Is there a reason why they're not having my face? Is there a reason why you don't have my face?
We can certainly provide
Well,
the
why was it
cameras on
turned
our
on my
speaker,
backside?
please.
So another way you think you're going to try to humiliate me, it doesn't work that way. Why would you turn it on my backside when I'm standing at the mic?
Ms. Fusco, stop the clock, please. If we could please, Beacon, there's a concern with the camera angle. If you could please adjust the camera angle, and we're going to just stay on the topic. That's all I'm asking. Please.
I'm on the
Dr.
topic.
Neesmith.
Understanding policies when people speak on an item for public speaking is to give the professional decency to understand they have something to say, not stifle them.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment on CC1? Okay, thank you. At this time, I will go to my colleagues, and I have Ms. Levinson.
Thank you, Ms. Korn. My question is on page 5 of 6 of the bylaws, the second to last page, section 7. A majority of the membership of the Technology Advisory Committee, 50% plus one, or a simple majority, constitutes a quorum. Could someone explain to me what a simple majority is?
You're in Article 7? Sorry.
Section 7, page 5 of 6.
Okay.
Second to last page. What is meant by this in this item?
Good afternoon.
Because you're either there or you're not there, and 50% plus one has always been what it is.
So good afternoon, Phil Dunn, Chief Information Officer. Thank you for your question, Mrs. Levinson. To answer it, per Ms. Myrick, a simple majority is defined as a majority in which the highest number of votes cast for any one candidate, issue, or item exceeds the second highest number while not constituting an absolute majority. Upon further reflection, we recognize that this may be a confusing concept, so we ask that we strike or a simple majority from the documents you have.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion. I don't know if you'd like me to make it now, Ms. Korn? I'd like to make a motion to amend section 7, where it reads, a majority of the membership of the Technology Advisory Committee, 50% plus one, constitutes a quorum.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, to my colleagues, any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Thank you. Do you have additional comments, Ms. Levinson?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. CC1, I also have Ms. Rupert.
That was the section I circled.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. Any additional comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, all those in favor of CC1 as amended, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. CC1 as amended passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on DD1? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Is there a public comment on DD1? Seeing none. To my colleagues, I have Ms. Bartleman.
Yes, I have a question for the Chief Auditor. Hi. So I just was curious, so you did the report, we have all of these findings, which are clearly troubling. I know you attached the minutes. So what is the fiduciary responsibility for the board in addition to accepting this audit?
Joris Jabilin, Chief Auditor. I will continue to monitor the status of the findings. For example, there is an agreed upon procedure that's required by the school to perform. So we're in the process of providing guidance to the consultant that will do that. And so I'll monitor it through. What I asked the board to do is to accept the report similar to the various reports that I present at each meeting.
Okay, so I guess my concern is he used money to pay his mother and different things in here. There's some really egregious things in this report. So do we report it to the state? Because, I mean, okay, we always talk that we need to have accountability, and clearly we have this information now. So what do we have to do as a board to be accountable for the tax dollars here?
Sure.
Because just accepting this does nothing.
Yeah, so I do want to inform the board that there are multiple things that are working. First is that there are some responses that we've asked the school, we have some recommendations that we've asked the school to implement as a corrective action as a result of that. And so we'll monitor it similar to how we monitor our findings. The state, the Office of Inspector General, I have been in touch with them throughout the time frame. They've received the draft reports, they've received the final reports, and so they're very well aware of the situation, particularly since they requested that we do the work. I want to tell the board, though, that there is no direct financial impact on the district based on our review of their general ledgers. We don't see any impact on FTE. We don't see any impact on smart bond purchases. This is a matter of a poor control environment within the charter schools, and that they need to improve. They need to be better oversight by their governing board, by the management company on their own employees. And so I will seek, if there is a settlement in the follow-up process, that the management company, if they do collect as a result, which I believe that there is, the management company has received some money back, and during the follow-up, I'll pursue that that's returned to the school. But I don't see an impact on the district with that.
Can I have another follow-up? Thank you.
Of course.
So I guess I'm not worried so much as the financial impact about us. I'm worried about my responsibility of a governing board and seeing these findings. So Mr. Sullivan, legislatively, are we doing everything? Should we have a cover memo from the chair sending, we're giving you this, Inspector General, this is the problem, but because we've had to close charter schools that are bad players, and we've had issues, and now here we have something that has a lot of clear problems. And so I just want to make sure that legislatively, I don't want the state to be able to come back and say, Broward County, you didn't do what you were supposed to be doing. So what else do we need to do under state statute? That if we're doing it all, then that's fine, but I want to be clear that we're following the law.
If I could please respond before Mr. Sullivan.
Oh, okay.
So throughout this process, we've also been working with Ms. Dante Collins from the Charter School Support Management area. And so she's well aware of that. And so we do have a fiduciary responsibility with respect to the management of the schools. And so she's on top of that. And so there's communication with the governing board as far as what they need to do. And so I'll continue to work with her as well.
Okay, and then Mr. Sullivan, legislatively, what does statute say in regards to our oversight and management?
Through the chair, John Sullivan, Task Assigned Chief Portfolio Service Officer. That question might be better for Ms. Myrick, but I will say that on our platform, and every time I'm up in Tallahassee, at the direction of this board, we always ask Tallahassee to hold charter schools accountable and to give us that authority. But in this case, Mr. Jabilin has been working and with the state already on this, so they're aware of this.
So they're okay, okay, then I will feel, okay. All right, as long as we've done everything we need to do. Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments from my colleagues? All those in favor of DD1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. DD1 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on E1?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on E1. Seeing none, and to my colleagues, Ms. Levinson.
Okay. Let me start by saying that this item is of great interest, and I support using our Brace cadets to continue using peers as influencers to move things forward. My question on here is the terms of the agreement. It says, I have a couple of items, but it says on page 2 of 15, concluding on June 30th, 2022. The item says through June 30th, 2021.
Hi, everybody. Ralph Aiello, Director of School Counseling and Brace Advisement. The implementation of the program itself with the training and the services delivered to students will complete at the end of the year in 2021. The research study with the IRB approval, so the statistical analysis, will then continue until 2022.
Okay, even though it says approve the recommendation upon execution of all parties through June 30th, 2021 on the item itself, and the contract says 2022.
Yeah, and so the IRB approval is what really is extending that timeline, that extra year, so they can complete the research analysis on it.
Okay, well, that will bring me to my other questions on it then. 2.02D. It refers to funding here, and that the lion's share during the 2021 school year will come from philanthropic support. Where is the rest coming from?
So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation worked with Pure Forward in order to fund the development of the affiliate program. Other philanthropic support's going to pay for the implementation of it. It's all 100% will be done through philanthropic support with no cost to the district.
Okay, so that's actually not the lion's share, it's all of the funding.
The lion is eating the whole share, yes.
He's a very full lion.
The elephant share.
Okay, 2.03, okay, you already addressed 2.03 of what was going to be done through 6/30/21. 2.06 again says, does not provide for any payment or exchange of money or financial obligation between the parties. Then when you move to 2.20, where it talks about the use of intellectual property and license conditions. License conditions for Develop Initiative intellectual property would be anticipated to allow SBBC to continue implementation of the program on its campus. So my question to you is, although it says there's no financial obligation now, in order to continue with it, we will have to purchase licenses?
No, ma'am. So the purpose of this pilot is to build capacity in our existing staff, so we no longer have to enter into a contractual agreement going forward, and we will not have any other costs going forward because we'll already have the training and resources available in-house.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So the one question I just wanted to have in terms of follow-up is typically when there's something that is in essence being donated, which is this, there is still a financial impact. It's a positive financial impact. And in this case, we're not really making note of what the positive financial impact is to the district, in essence, the donation. Is there any way of being able to monetize what that impact is in terms of what is being donated?
I'd have to do a follow-up and report back.
Okay, the reason is because I think there's something to being able to provide, that there is actually a financial impact to this district. I mean, this is being, this donation although it's not a physical one, still certainly there are going to be individuals who are paid money and we're not the ones paying it. So I would just ask that you ask if that could be provided and that be something that be brought forward to the board in a memo so that we can memorialize it.
Will do.
And on that, all those in favor of E1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. E1 passes unanimously. Thank you very much for that opportunity. May I please have a motion and a second on E2?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience, this was pulled by the audience. Audience input.
Yes, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. Okay, this is the solicitation for the new cost and program controls manager. You may recall that we recently did the solicitation for the new program manager. This follows the same format because back in February during the roofing discussions, it prompted me to question what was HERI's contractual obligation in regards to roofing standards and all of the issues related to roofing. So that initial solicitation developed by staff was pulled from the agenda, and then we reworked it and had it reviewed by RSM and added specificity to protect the board, the taxpayers, and staff. Staff was very willing to practice continuous improvement to make the new solicitation better than the one in 2015. That is the very definition of continuous improvement. You look at what you did wrong in the past and look for ways to make it better, and you accept constructive criticism and recommendations, and everybody work together. That was an example of how advisories can work with staff. But I want to recognize the hard work on the part of two people that were involved with both solicitations, because I think there's probably no way you would know. And that's one, the Director of Pre-Construction, Shelley Maloney, who is the person responsible for revamping and working with the different departments to revise scope of services on both of those. And then also the Manager of Construction Sourcing, Shari Francis. The last round of review for the Cost and Program Controls Manager was a victim of the memo, because the day that I was supposed to get the last round of it, nothing came into my inbox, and I found out later why. So the revamping and revising and all of the work that everybody did is for nothing if these things aren't followed. So we're hoping in the future that both the program manager's scope of services and the contract and the new cost and program control manager's scope of services and contract will be adhered to and not compromised by people trying to hide what's going on. We put in, and I'm shocked that most of it made it into the solicitations, put in new timelines that extend out to 2026. I don't know how many people actually read the thing, because I was surprised it got approved. So that means the substantial completion report dates that you've been looking at, everybody knows they're not realistic, but they're still there because of some crazy adherence and dream of 2021, 2022, but all of those are going to be redone. And this memo, once again, this was an example of everyone working together. You have people violating their job descriptions by not being allowed to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input on E2? Colleague input on E2? Seeing none, all those in favor of E2, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. E2 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE1 and 2?
So moved, Rupert.
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Ms. Brinkworth. Audience input on EE1 and 2. Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is, and I'm sure maybe one of my colleagues is going to ask this as well, what is the status of the additional agreements coming before the board? The status of additional agreements coming before the board.
Mr. Katz needs a microphone, please. Mr. Katz is on the east side of the room. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Katz, Chief Safety and Security Officer. We have 2 agreements that are still outstanding. Both are just waiting to go before their commission. We expect them to come to the October 20th board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Murray?
Yes, I have one question. There's an increase to the cost of this agreement, and according to the information here, that it's coming from Safe Schools allocation. How are we going to handle this expense once that disappears?
I'm sorry, Ms. Murray, the Safe Schools allocation is a regular occurring thing. That's not the, that's not through the referendum. Safe Schools allocation is what we get from the state every year.
Okay, but the amount that's in it now, will it stay? I mean, we'll not know in the future exactly how much.
I mean, every year that amount changes. Last year to this year, it was pretty flat. So again, we haven't seen any concerns and certainly haven't heard anything. I would defer to Mr. Sullivan if he's in the room as it relates to whether he's heard anything about this, but I've not heard anything about that being
Okay,
reversed.
Judy's got her hand up.
To the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Marte. Did you want to expand on that?
Yes, the allocation and the formula by which the allocation happens has been stable for the last 10 years. So we don't have any reason to expect it to change adversely at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then I have Ms. Brinkworth.
Sorry, I apologize. I just wanted to get confirmation for 2 of the entities that have 12 months in their agreement. The purpose, please.
Those are ones that have year-round schools.
Okay, thank you.
We're on
And Ms. Bartleman?
We're on EE1, right?
And 2.
No, we are on EE2. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, and EE, yes. We've moved EE1 and EE2, yes.
Okay, I just wanted,
Sorry,
I was
yes.
like,
We were
that's not
talking
my-
about EE2, but we're doing both, yes.
Okay, I was like, that's not my question. Can you just, because there's been questions about, Mr. Katz, I know you've been purchasing under the EE1, the emergency PPE. I know one of our parents spent $1,100 to fit the school with where you can get the hand sanitizer in the hallways. Have we since purchased that, or is that part of this order, or can someone explain, because, thank you.
So Ms. Coker can answer that question. We are in the process of procuring as we have talked about, stations to be deployed. Up till now, we have deployed the pumps so that they are available in those locations. We expect that those will be in prior to student return and completely finished. We do need to be very cautious and careful about where those locations are placed, because for fire code, they can't be in sort of big open common spaces like hallways or outside of doors of classrooms, because again, from a fire perspective. But as far as the procurement, I don't know if Ms. Coker has anything she wants to add.
And it's just coming. I just feel bad that the parents, at one point, the communication wasn't clear with the principal, so the parents spent the money to donate the stations to the school. So
Good morning.
Is it clear now that they're getting those stations?
Yes, good morning. Mary Coker, Director, Procurement and Warehousing Services. Thank you for your question, Ms. Bartleman. We have sourced, we have began yesterday delivering those stands to the schools. I believe there's going to be about approximately between 8 and 10 per school. So we have began delivering them to the schools. They should be receiving them to the rest of the week.
All right, and I'd like to thank the parent who was proactive and did purchase those for his child's school. So thank you very much. Then my question is on EE2 next, Mr. Katz, for you. The ESE training, we spoke about it at great length. And so I was looking for it in here, and is that going to happen, especially with the officers dealing with our students with autism? Will it be mandated and provided by your staff?
So what we included this year, again, in our negotiations with the Broward County Chiefs of Police Association is there's a whereas clause that didn't exist previously that effectively says that the school district will provide regular training to the SROs. Again, we can provide the training. The attendance, again, is on the part of the individual agency, but we've not seen any pushback in that, and they all seem to be welcoming it.
And did they all attend the training last year?
Did all agencies attend the trainings that were held last year?
Yeah, it was really, the board feels it's very important that they're trained to deal with our students with developmental disabilities. We had really big discussion about it, and since it's not a mandate and it's up to them, I'd just be curious how many agencies participated in that training. And since this is our contract and they're dealing specifically with students, why we can't have that language. I guess this contract is done for this year again, so we can try again for next year, but there was direction last year to put it in here.
Yeah,
I mean, don't we have any teeth? If they're working for us, we can say, look, you're working in a school with students with disabilities. We'd like you to have one training on it and mandate it. I don't understand why we can't do that.
I would defer to Ms. Myrick for comment, but I think the answer to your, do we have the teeth to be able to make it a requirement unilaterally? I would say no. Again, they're not our employees, and our ability, look, the SRO program is designed to be a partnership between us and law enforcement, right? And we are trying to get to conclusions that we feel like are agreeable on both sides when we're having these negotiations. It's been negotiations in good faith. We feel like those conversations have gone well. They all seem interested in wanting to do the training. The last major training of last school year actually fell during the pandemic, so it didn't happen. But coming back to school and with this, what this allows us for is on a half day or on a teacher work day where we have that ability to provide that training. We know we have the staff within the district able to provide that training, and we've, again, heard nothing but support from the agencies as far as doing it.
So when you
So
put
we
it
could-
on the table, Mr. Runcie?
So what I'll say we'll do, this year, obviously going forward, is we certainly will track who is attending what training from the different municipalities, and should we find a particular SRO municipality who is not participating, we will reach out to them and encourage them to do it, and really try to have the conversations that way.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think maybe next year as well, in your negotiation, to put it on the table.
It was on the table.
Oh, it was?
Absolutely.
Oh, my God, and they didn't agree to it. Okay.
It's not again, I just want to clarify, it's not an, oh my God, like I said, if it's a requirement of the contract and it's something that either the training doesn't happen or for whatever reason they have a conflict and are not able to, then we run into compliance issues as it relates to the contract. So we'd rather approach this as a mutual understanding, which is where we're at this year, which is an advancement from where we were last year based on the feedback that we got from the board.
I like Mr. Runcie's plan, so thank you, Mr. Runcie, for doing that. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Bartleman? Okay, I think Ms. Levinson?
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment about the freestanding hand sanitizer. Just, Mr. Katz, you have mentioned that in several workshops. We've had questions that I and other board members have addressed you about it, and so it's been very clear that every school was going to get approximately 8 of those.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And to your point, again, initially when we did the deployment, there were a lot of conversations with the health and sanitation work stream. It was, does it need to be something on a pole? Is it something that could be attached to the wall, right? There are all of those things, but also based on our MOU that we did with the Broward Teachers Union, we wanted to ensure that, again, we're meeting what we agreed to with the unions, and so we will make sure that that's being done, and we're working with Ms. Coker on it.
Right, and I just wanted to clarify that has always been the intent, and that's what we are following through with. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And then I just had 2 quick questions on EE2. Just on page 3, under the recommendation to approve agreements, when it says combination in the city of Coral Springs, the SROs, what does that mean, combination?
I'm sorry, page 3.
Oh, it's just arcade, okay, the combination of the school. It's one of our extended
Combination
arcade
schools.
schools. Okay,
Yep.
got it, thank you. And then the other one, I just wanted to make note of the increase from the 54,600 to the 60,000 that's in each of these agreements.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we obviously appreciate the opportunity to continue to have that dialogue, and as we look at our budget from year to year, an opportunity to continue to be able to discuss that as we continue to hear concerns, but appreciate the city's partnerships in supporting these SROs with us at the schools. With that, all those in favor of EE2, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Madam
opposed?
Chair, was that EE1 and 2?
Thank you, EE1 and EE2. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. EE1 and EE2 passed unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE3?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on EE3. Seeing none, my colleagues, I have Ms. Levinson. I'm sorry, no, I don't. I have Ms. Bartleman.
Yes, I just wanted you, for the public's edification, clarify what this item is, because there's all these questions that are we buying more cameras? You heard about it. I just want that explained, what's happening with this item and what it is. So go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Phil Dunn, Chief Information Officer. Thank you for your questions, Bartleman. This item is a request for 2 actions on the part of the board. One is to approve, I'm sorry with the distance, I'm trying to get it right. One is to approve a $5.2 million spending authority increase to the existing catalog bid for AV equipment. The other action sought is to approve a $1.03 million capital allocation from the existing capital reserve to fund a lease to procure 5.2, not 13.4 or 5, $5.2 million of cameras. The Polycom X50 is the model.
So are we buying additional cameras, or did we already buy them?
So,
That's what I,
Sorry,
that's
Mr.
where the,
So this covers the cameras that have already been purchased and delivered and provided to the schools off of the existing contract. And so what this does is it essentially will replenish those dollars to this contract. So schools have the ability to buy additional equipment and things that they would normally need to.
okay, I just,
Because we didn't anticipate necessarily when this contract was originally constructed that we would make this kind of investment. So given the spend history on this, I think there's a sense that we need to go and add that back to the spending authority so departments and schools will be able to meet their needs.
I'm fine with it. I just,
Yeah.
you heard
Right,
the
no, that's-
comments
so that's
that
what it is.
people
So
are
it's-
curious, like, oh,
Right,
you're
it's not buying
cameras, you're
additional
doing this.
equipment
Right.
at all. It's just covering what we've already committed to and purchased.
Okay, and then my next question is, we didn't anticipate the $1 million coming from capital reserve. So I'm just wondering, are we replenishing that with CARES money? How does this fit with, I know our capital reserves are really tight, so every time another $1 million is spent, it's $1 million. Ms. Marte's here.
Yeah, she's not here, but she, and I saw it yesterday, we typically send the capital reserve update to the board. I think that was in a memo the other night, so there's certainly sufficient funds to cover this million plus
Here she
that's
comes.
here without adversely impacting the capital budget.
And could CARES money be used for this, or no? I'm talking about the, she's back.
I don't believe you can use CARES money for capital
But it's,
expenditure.
for the cameras were bought specifically for virtual learning, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, but-
Is we're taking it- My question was just, is our capital reserves okay taking another $1 million out? And could the money be replenished? Because it's used for, we're using the cameras for virtual learning in response to the pandemic.
So through the chair, generally speaking, Title I funds have very strict limits on capitalized assets. The application as approved does not include any allowance for capital assets. We certainly could explore that, though. And as it relates to the adequacy of capital reserves, I'm working from memory, but I believe the memo I sent out to the board yesterday
That's what Mr. Runcie just said. Yeah.
clearly indicates that we have still significant unallocated capital reserves available for the district.
Perfect, okay. Can I ask you one more question about the CARES? Is it because we didn't put it in? Have other districts been approved for capital expenditures as it pertains to CARES?
So generally speaking, grant dollars have significant limits around capital. As I said, we did not put it in, but I certainly could explore amending the grant to include it.
Oh.
I have significant concerns about doing that, however, given the expectation that there will be a significant mid-year holdback, and we've set aside those dollars to do everything that this board can to make sure we keep our workforce whole.
Okay, well, you don't have to explore it then, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of EE3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. EE3 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE4?
Second, sorry.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on EE4. My colleagues, I have Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Broward County for this, for giving us this from the CARES Act money that was received from the county. It will be used for $1 million worth of meals that are provided to our students and families, and I believe $3.27 million for the nurses that they are helping us to provide. So I just want to thank the county and just remind staff that it says you have to submit your request for payment no later than December 10th. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to echo that. A lot of the public comment that we've been getting over the last several weeks has been, why aren't you collaborating? Why aren't you looking out to the county? And this is reflective of the work that has actually been ongoing. So there has been a great deal of conversation, and we do greatly support the county and their staff for going down this path with us and for their support. Dr. Osgood?
Yeah, and I just want to add that the county continues to work with us on multiple things in the community to help enhance the work we're doing. And, a special shout out to Commissioner Nan Rich, who has just been tirelessly involved helping us with mental health services, leading the charge on the county to make sure that the dollars that they are getting are working to help enhance and meet the needs in ways that we're not able to with our budget. So I just salute the county commission and thank them for their continued support.
Thank you. All of those in favor of EE4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. EE4 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on EE5?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on EE5. Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question just with regard to the last box in the executive summary and the research methodology. Can you, I think it's probably to Mr. Gohl, can you just confirm what has been utilized to identify the eligible students? Because I know it indicates here number 3, letter names, letter sounds, and concept of print administered in August/September 2020.
This is Dan Gold, Chief Academic Officer. Thank you, Ms. Brinkworth, for the question. Yes, letters, names, and sounds, unlike Flickrs, was able to be administered using Microsoft Teams, so we did have data from that for our kindergarten students.
Okay, and then I know that there has been feedback from parents with regard to some of the difficulties that might have been encountered. And so I just want to make sure that there's going to be some maybe additional secondary review for eligibility.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I can assure you, the board, and the community as a whole that there is ongoing review based on student interaction and their demonstration of growth. And we are adding students throughout this first quarter, including this week. Even though we only have 2 weeks left, we're continuing to add students based on their performance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Levinson.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, it says here, face-to-face extended learning services on school campuses. What does that mean, extended learning services? How is that going to be provided? I read the summary here, and I didn't see exactly how it was going to be provided.
So face-to-face in this case does involve, thus far, digitally mediated, people being able to see each other, not physical presence in the same location. This is being offered after school and on Saturdays as well, so it is supplemental and not part of the core instructional day.
So after school and on Saturdays?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of EE5, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. EE5 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on FF1 and I1?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on FF1 and I1. Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Rupert for I1.
Got it. Thank you. I hated to pull this because, staff always has that question. What are you calling it for? It's strictly, I wanted to promote that ATC's agreement with DaVita Dialysis to provide students that are enrolled in our health sciences and especially our, I'm going to say this as best as I can, hemodialysis tech program for their clinical experiences. The same thing really was for I2, which I didn't pull, or I3, I4. It strictly, they're for clinical opportunities, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Yes, Ms. Brinkworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly, in the summary explanation and background, in the second sentence, it reads, at Atlantic Technical College to participant, and it should say to participate in clinical learning experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of FF1 and I1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. FF1 and I1 pass unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on I4?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Dr. Osgood. This was an audience input poll, so Mr. Moquin, I believe it was a written comment.
That is correct, Madam Chair. This comment on I4 comes from Jason Siegelbaum of Hollywood, Florida. Thank you for allowing me the chance to speak via this email. My son, Max Siegelbaum, was one of the 7 students that suffered abuse at the hands of 2 teachers over at Pasadena Lakes Elementary 2 years ago. Immediately after the abuse, Max left Pasadena Lakes for what he hoped would be a better experience for him at Dania Elementary. Towards the beginning of the year, we were notified that he was experiencing a very similar form of abuse at the hands of his new teacher at Dania Elementary. Ms. Schwank, my wife, and I received a total of 3 videos showing the abuse my son and his fellow classmates received within the classroom. These videos were shot by a student teacher that had been in the classroom only one time before this and was alarmed enough by what he saw during his first visit that he decided to shoot the video he did. Since the story broke on WSVN 7, our lawyer, Martin Berger, obtained the full video from the student teacher's day at Dania Elementary. According to our lawyer, the 3 videos we were sent were all the tip of the iceberg regarding the abuse the students were receiving. From what I understand, your board is considering a 3-day suspension for Ms. Schwank without pay, following which she will be allowed back into the school. Frankly, I don't understand how these decisions are made and by whom they are made. This educator abused my son and the others in his classroom and is getting away with what amounts to a slap on the wrist. Imagine if you were one of your children in the classroom and make a decision how you would reprimand her. I'm more than happy to speak with my lawyer and have him provide you with the video. The lawyers involved on the county side already have those videos, and therefore they should be made available to you in the near future. But I implore you, do not rule on this until further investigation is done in this matter. Thank you for hearing me out regarding this. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Yes, Anna Fusco, Broward Teachers Union President, speaking on behalf of this agenda item. I want you to understand that this was a student that, from a college that has 0 understanding of the special needs population, a snippet of videos. There was 0 understanding if it was done with, checked on to see if it was accurate, done with fidelity. From what I saw, it looked like it was sped up. It was cut and spliced. I'm a victim of a cut and splice video with Broward County Public Schools that Barbara Myrick allowed. So I understand when it happens. And this person that they're speaking about had more than 20-something testimonies throughout her career, how awesome she was. There were other people in the room that were physical witnesses, and that wasn't good enough. I've seen it in my capacity of union president of videos that have come out. We're in the year of 2020. Things get spliced, get dubbed, get added. It happens all the time. This teacher is not abusive. It was misrepresented. It was misunderstood. She doesn't even deserve 3 days. I understand as a parent that when you think or feel that your child may have been hurt, the mama bear comes out, the papa bear comes out. No disrespect to the parents. I guarantee if they would have taken a moment to speak to the teacher, which they didn't, they would know that what they felt happened didn't happen. This is a child who self-hurts. This can only lead for me to say to everyone out there that you shouldn't help a child because then you're accused of hurting. Don't Don't stop another child from hurting another child because you can be accused of hurting the child because somebody misrepresented, took a certain type of video a certain type of way. I get the parents are upset. And we will be going further with it. This teacher is innocent. I don't stand up here for everybody, but when I do, I know this teacher was innocent. She shouldn't even be getting 3 days. You're right. You should vote it down. She shouldn't be getting any type of discipline. It's a great teacher that loves her students, proven by many, 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 many people, parents, colleagues, and other students, that she was awesome. She is awesome, and was only trying to help, and it was misunderstood.
Thank you. Is there additional comments from the public? Hearing none, to my colleagues, this is on I-4. Not seeing any. All those in favor of I-4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Just a quick question. Is this isn't one, we don't have to give cause as to not supporting it, correct?
Yes, you would need to have, no, no. You
Okay,
can
I just
vote
wanted,
no.
I didn't think so. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify because I know there are some
Yes.
that rise to that and some that do not.
No.
So the I-4 passes. May I please have a motion and a second on JJ 1, 2, and 3?
Second?
Moved by Ms. Rupert, second by Ms. Brinkworth. Audience input on JJ 1, 2, and 3.
Need 1 second. I'm trying to remember if it's the change orders. Okay, Natalie Lynch Walsh, Plantation, Florida. There's one that is actually rejecting all bids, and that's the one we're concerned about. And if that's not JJ 1, 2, and 3, I'll come back.
No, I was gonna say, I think that was a single.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Single? Okay. So, because we're tracking anytime that there's a rejection, oh, yeah, that was the single, the J, and for some reason, I missed that, sorry. That was the one I actually wanted to speak to, because there've been some rejections lately. So on Park Trails, nope, Fort Lauderdale Advanced Roofing. No. And Dillard Elementary was one that was rejected before, that we sort of set aside in a folder to see if it came back higher or lower. So I'll have to look at that one. And I will be back at 5 o'clock with my additional comments, but in the meantime, we have ratcheted up the public records request. It seems to be taking forever today. And for some reason, I just ran into your executive director and he seems terrified. So I really now am wondering how much of this is you and how much was actually him.
Thank you. Any additional public comment on JJ 1, 2, and 3? Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. JJ 3. I'm actually going to respond to what we voted on. I had actually made that motion to reject all the bids. The district saved $1.145 million on rejecting that bid. So that's over $1 million to our favor. So I thank staff for putting that back out to bid. And I think we have to, as I mentioned back then, be ever cognizant of the economy that we're in right now. As back in 2014, things started to shift where the costs went up. I am looking for the costs to go down in this economy. That's how it works. It's supply and demand, And we have a lot of work for contractors. There's not a lot of work out there. And so this is just an example of what happens when we stay on top of things and we do what's best for the district. So it came in 22% lower than that first bid. So I'm excited now that we're going to be able to move ahead for Dillard Elementary School to get them all that they need in the SMART bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Osgood.
Staff answered my question.
Perfect, thank you. All those in favor of JJ 1, 2, and 3, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. JJ 1, 2, and 3 pass unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on JJ 4?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Murray, second by Ms. Alhadeff. Audience input on JJ 4? Seeing none, to my colleagues, I have Ms. Levinson.
Thank you. This actually applied to JJ1 as well, but since I had an additional comment on JJ4, I'm bringing it up here. I noticed on both of these that there is a building added for sprinklers at a later date. When we had gone through the buildings before and found out which ones didn't require, it was done before it was brought to us. So my concern is, how many of these have there been? And can we have our chief fire official, task assigned, involved in these on the front end? That's how these should have been done, instead of adding them later.
Frank Girardi, Executive Director of Capital Programs. Yes, if you remember back, I don't know how many board meetings ago, we had an issue like this come up, and the board had asked us everything that was approved prior to the task assignment of Vicki Stanford, that we relook at everything approved by the previous chief. And there are one or two, there are a few, I don't have an exact amount, and we can get that for you, but I don't have it with me, but there are some that she feels were removed incorrectly. And those are the ones that are adding back. We are trying to do this prior to the bid, but this was one that just kind of got slipped by. And we did look at it.
There are two of these, actually, so
Okay.
if you could please let us know if there are any others.
Sure.
And what kind of cost are we talking about adding to the job? Approximate.
I'm going to see if Ashley knows that. Or maybe Kathleen, go ahead.
How do you do this?
Should be.
Ashley Carpenter with Atkins. Thanks for the question. Yes, we've estimated about, I mean, this is really rough, but
just rough.
$10 a square foot at the high end. So for this project, it's only one building. I want to say it was 20,000 or so square feet, so a couple $100,000.
Okay, well, those add up, so I would like to know if there are any additional ones, if we could get follow-up on that. And then when I looked at the DEFP for this item, it has $3,958,903, and in here it says $3,040,778. So why do they not agree?
That is because we've always had two projects for Addicts Middle, so there was a phase 1 and a phase 2. And this project, which has the fire alarm, fire sprinkler, HVAC improvements, was the majority of the money, and then there's another smaller project with, I believe, media center and roofing.
So this one, you said is for which?
This one is the fire sprinkler, fire alarm, HVAC improvements.
And building envelope, electric. So media center was not part of this.
Correct.
What else was not part of it?
Roofing.
And the roofing. Okay, so then that would bring us to 2.5. That would make sense. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional comments on JJ4? Seeing none, all those in favor of JJ4, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. JJ4 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on JJ5?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Dr. Osgood. Audience input on JJ5. Seeing none, I have Ms. Levinson.
JJ5, this is a very minor amount in the scope of the budget, but there were allowances in there, and it says due to second permit revision phase. That happens on almost every one of our jobs. So it's concerning to see this, and I want to make sure that we don't continue to see this.
Yes, Frank Girardi again. Yes, it is a small, minor amount.
But it's the principle.
ACOM is already looking into changes, and I'll let Kathleen talk to it, about we need to do this more electronically and not even have to worry about the printing. Because yes, as you go through these revise and resubmits, you have to reprint drawings. Not all of them, it's only the new drawings, but that still adds up. So I don't know if Kathleen would like.
Thank you. It's Kathleen Langen with AECom. We are looking at, I think we've talked before about making some improvements, making some recommendations, and this will be one of them. As we look forward to a workshop, we would like to be recommending that we look more at technology for the drawings. It's done consistently throughout the country. Understanding that Broward wants certain hard copies of certain things, we feel that we can save a lot of money, both in storage and in printing costs, by using more technology. So we'll be bringing that forward to the board in upcoming workshops.
Okay, I appreciate that. Why is the $45,000 already used that we need the additional amount?
Good.
Can we get a microphone for Ms. Carpenter, please? Thank you.
Ashley Carpenter with Atkins. So this project only had a $5,000 reproduction allowance. It also had other allowances for testing and for supplemental services. The supplemental services, part of the contract that explains what you can use for supplemental services does not include reproduction, so we thought we need to bring it to the board to get approval because it's very prescriptive as to what you can use that money for.
Okay, I'm just not understanding why this one's different than any other one.
I think this one had a very small reproduction allowance. I'm not exactly sure why. So, I mean, I can look at other projects of similar size and see what challenges they experienced, but it didn't have a $45,000 allowance. It just had a $5,000 allowance.
Okay, well, I look forward to AECom talking about bringing us where we need to be when it comes to this. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of JJ5, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. JJ5 passes unanimously. May I please have a motion and a second on JJ6 and LL1?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Brinkworth, second by Ms. Rupert. Audience input on JJ6 and LL1. To my colleagues, any comments on JJ6 or LL1? Seeing none, all those in favor of JJ6 or LL1, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. JJ6 and LL1 pass unanimously. So if I could get those who usually confirm it are not at their desk. I believe that we have disposed of all of the items. Ms. Myrick, maybe you can confirm for me so I have
Yes,
a confirmation.
confirmed.
Thank you very much. So at this time, we are going to, it is the end of the agenda. I am going to give an opportunity for my colleagues if there are any specific items that need to be brought before us to discuss it in an upcoming workshop. Okay. Yes, Ms. Brinkworth?
I have, from Student Advisor Rocco, I don't know if he's had the opportunity, he's been trying to have this conveyed, and he sent, I'm sorry, so Rocco Diaz, Student Advisor to the board, he and I have been having conversations since the murder of George Floyd and his concerns and some of the concerns of the students. And so He wanted me to ask that we have the opportunity to have a conversation about the enhancement of education regarding African American and minority history through specialty social studies classes and engagement of middle and elementary schoolers. And so he would like to have a conversation about that. I know that I asked for staff to provide some information about what courses are offered at different schools, how many different courses, what levels of those courses. And Rocco and I had a conversation about that, and he's very interested in how we can offer a more diverse schedule of programs and classes to our students across the district. And I think some of the conversation we've had regarding the ability to have cameras in classrooms with teachers enhance that, I think is a real opportunity for us. So I would just like, if there's an opportunity for us to have a larger discussion, on behalf of Rocco, I'm asking that question.
Yeah, and I'll look at the workshop schedule, and I think, I know we want to have something coming up on academics. We can probably try to weave it into that, but we'll look for an opportunity to do that sometime soon. But I think what you mentioned is absolutely something that we will put on our radar this year and work with our schools to try to create these cross-school opportunities for unique course offerings which may exist in one school and may not exist in the other. So there's an awareness, one, that this opportunity exists, and number two, creating the mechanism and process for students to be able to make those kind of selections. So we'll work that out by the time we get to the second semester. At a minimum, that'll at least put things in play for the following school year, because that's when the schools start to put their schedules together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I know that I've actually had conversations with Mr. Runcie, and I believe Council of Great City Schools has talked about this topic several times. I know Ms. Levinson has brought it up as well. So when we ask for topics, I look for consensus from my colleagues in terms of an interest in making sure that that's something, and I'm looking around the dais and seeing a consensus that that would be something that we would pursue. So thank you, Mr. Runcie, for your support on the topic.
Ms. Collins?
Yes, Ms. Murray?
Yes. Superintendent Runcie, with the opening of the school, will you have a press release? So, because there's been so much apprehension from different sources, to let the public know the results of our opening of school, either like maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week?
Oh, yes, so I think you're referring to, normally what we would have on the first day of school, we would provide some information. We certainly will do something on Friday, given the fact that we have 3 waves of this coming. I don't know if we're going to have 3, but I think at least on the first day, which is this coming Friday, I would look at that as a start of a new school year in a way. So I certainly will start out the school year as I normally do at a bus terminal. We'll be riding one of our buses as well and visiting our schools to see how they're doing, and we'll do that again, and we'll maybe have something towards the end of the day. I'll get together with Ms. Coker and see what we may do on that front.
Okay, thank you.
But we certainly will, we're trying to make sure we provide as much media as possible. Today, we had a very productive visit to Hollywood Park Elementary, where we highlighted the protocols that we have in place, the materials, the resources. The media was also able to talk to a couple of teachers there. They were able to also see the school nurse in the isolation rooms, how we're going to handle dealing with breakfast and meals, essentially the day in the life of what a student may look like. We walked through that whole thing, and so I will continue to highlight that and bring media exposure to what that looks like, so parents have a good sense of what that is.
Well, I thought that Hollywood Park this morning did a great presentation, and if all our schools flow like they did, we'll have a smooth sailing for next week.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Any of my other colleagues? Okay, so at this time, we're going to take our public speakers. This is the time on the agenda when school board members will hear from our speakers. Each listed speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Speakers are reminded to address matters of relevance to the public education and demonstrate proper decorum. No heckling, shouting comments from the audience, verbal outbursts, or any other disruptive behavior shall be permitted. No signs or placards should be allowed in the board meeting. No derogatory comments using the person's proper name shall be permitted, and persons exiting the boardroom shall do so quietly. Further, at the conclusion of public speakers, the chair will provide an opportunity for the superintendent or his cabinet at his discretion to provide comments regarding any subject matter or issues raised by our public speakers. Additionally, the superintendent may have members of his staff speak to an individual public speaker in an effort to address his or her concerns and to provide follow-up to public speakers back from the board. The chair will now call our first public speaker. Do we have a list of those who are present? Thank you, Juan. And as we're pausing, I just want to take a moment to thank staff. Staff does a great deal of work in preparation for these meetings, as well as throughout the meetings, to make sure that the public has an opportunity to be socially distanced, to be able to be provided a safe space, to be able to give their comments, as well as those who are taking those comments online and giving us an opportunity to hear those as well. So I do want to take a moment and thank the staff for all of their diligent work in working with us through this pandemic. There's always something changing, and we appreciate the opportunity of allowing us to do our best to have the public engaged in the, continue to be engaged in the conversation. So I'm going to ask for the first public speaker. Again, all speakers are asked to state their name at the beginning of their comments. That is part of the requirement of providing public comments. The first speaker for today is David Fleischer.
Hi, before I begin, Ms. Bartleman, you had a sheet of paper. Can I get a copy of that, please? Thank you very much. Has this paper been provided to everyone? You've all got it?
He's going to be providing it,
Okay,
yes.
perfect, thank you. Oh, you don't hand it out until I start?
He'll be handing it out, please.
I
Just
mean, I
state
was
your
hoping to
name
get
and
your
we can
full
get
attention,
started.
but okay, all right,
Thank you.
I guess not. Okay, I'm David Fleischer. That's my full name. All right, so I've been coming here for weeks now, and I've been trying to get someone's attention about this issue that I have brought forth numerous times now, that Principal Hala Darbar at Everglades High School took hundreds of thousands of dollars from teachers and from students inappropriately against school board policies and against laws of Florida. I've brought it up to all of you numerous times, and no one has done anything. I brought it to Dr. Wanza. They did not investigate it. You know how I know she didn't investigate it, and Mr. LePage didn't investigate it, and Alan Strauss didn't investigate it, and Veda Hudge didn't investigate it? You know how I know that? Because I went to the Public Records Department. I requested all the documentation for an investigation. I got nothing, absolutely nothing. There is no record an investigation ever occurred, and SIU, for a matter like this, would have had to be notified, contacted, and they would have to look into it. And I'll show you why in a second with that sheet of paper. But let me tell you who has paid attention to me so far. Hala Darbar's attorney contacted me with a cease and desist letter, saying that if I speak any more about this subject, I'm going to get sued for slander.
Okay, I'm going to ask if you refer to her as the principal of the high school, please.
I'm allowed to talk about people as we
Correct.
talked
We're just
about
not using her
policy.
proper name, so if you could please use her indicated position with the district.
So I'm allowed to say Principal Darbar?
Yes. No, principal of the high school, please.
We went about this policy. Where is Myrick?
Can you
I get
please
official
pause the
ruling,
time?
please? You said I'm not allowed to use
Thank you.
derogatory statements. I'm not. I'm stating statements of fact.
Okay,
and
you're
I will
making
prove them to you right here.
accusations against her.
I will prove it to you right here.
Okay, what I'm explaining to you is as the chair, those are the indications I'm giving you from the policy as the board. You are certainly welcome to refer to her as the principal of the high school. We're not using proper names. I am being consistent with all of our speakers.
That is not what your policy says.
Okay, as the chair, that is how I'm directing if you'd like to continue to make your public comments.
It's fine.
Thank you. Okay, if we could provide him with the time, please.
All right, so the principal who shall not be named, can we call her Voldemort then at that point? So the principal who shall not be named, okay, has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars, and her attorney has contacted me and said I'm going to be charged with slander. They're going to sue me for every word that I say. Okay? So if I'm here, you should believe, and I'm talking about this, you should believe that I'm telling you the truth. I am dead serious, and you need to do something to fix this problem. So the sheet of paper I have handed you, which you all have, okay, this sheet of paper, this is from a public records request, which I emailed you today at 11 a.m. You'll see it, and I've emailed to you numerous times before. This is just from a random sample of the hundreds of pages of documents. If you look at the top of it, it will just show you a bunch of numbers, a bunch of dates, and that shows you when someone has called out sick. Okay? This is the official record when someone calls out sick. Now, below that in 2019, you're going to start to see something that says teacher planning subtime. That shows when they're compensated for covering a class. There is no record anywhere in any of these documents that a teacher at Everglades High School under that principal, who I cannot name, was compensated a single time from 2012 to 2019 for covering a single class. I have asked you to investigate it. You did not investigate it. There is no record of it. You now have, again, I am showing you proof. Not a single teacher was compensated. This shows you exactly where it is. Look through the hundreds of pages. Look through it. Show some respect to the teachers. Show some respect to your employees and to the county.
Thank you.
What?
So, Mr. Runcie?
Yeah, so.
As I have followed up, and there has been investigation done. If you could please, Mr. Runcie, just provide some feedback.
Yes, so Ms. Korn, what I will do is I will work with Mr. Katz and Dr. Wanzen. I'll have SIU do an independent investigation. I think that's the only way we'll ever get to the bottom of this. So I will direct Mr. Katz to initiate that and work with Dr. Wanzen's office to prepare to make that happen.
Okay, but I guess what I would ask is that when I discussed this with you, there was mention that there's actually been 2 investigations, so I don't want to leave it as if this is the first time.
Yeah, that's correct. It has been looked into by OSPA. There was another review that was done as well, but we'll do a final, formal, third investigation into this matter, and I'll report to the board on what those findings are when that process is completed.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And next on our list is Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh.
Natalie Lynch-Walsh, Plantation, Florida, and while we're talking about investigations, I'll bring back up the memo again, because I don't know when else we would be talking about it. The last grand jury in 2011 mentioned twice targeting whistleblowers. They mentioned a lot of other things, and all you guys had to do since then was read that thing and not make the same mistakes. And yet here we are, because targeting whistleblowers is what this memo is all about. We have been sitting and watching and advising you against all of the bad decisions that have come down the pike. Don't go out for a bond without doing long-term planning. How are you prioritizing roofs? I probably have thousands and thousands of emails to the board since I started volunteering. I started volunteering, my oldest was in 1st grade, she's now in 10th. So I have been here all along, building credibility because I am transparent and I tell the truth. And the truth is coming back to bite you guys, and we just have to get real about it. But this memo, which I sat on, because as much as you might like to think I have it out for Mr. Runcie, I can't even imagine how his name got on this memo. It's like you're giving the grand jury a gift saying, please, let's have an example of us not learning and targeting whistleblowers. You're targeting the very task force now that is meant to advise you of potential issues, and we do, but you haven't listened the past few years, and now it's all coming to a head. You're gonna have to re-baseline dates again. I sent, finally, an email to everybody and to Myrick. The only thing she has asserted that the superintendent had the authority to do was assign a liaison, but even that is not the way it ought to be, because all the other advisories have liaisons with subject matter experts. No other advisory has this gag order. I just saw the two people that I thanked the last time I was up here, and they looked like they wanted to flee. And I do not, this all started becoming unraveled in March and April. The superintendent gives us the impression that he doesn't actually want staff working with the task force, because the time we did on the program manager RFQ and everybody worked together, that feeling of accomplishment was taken away in April. And Frank stopped the executive director of capital programs stopped talking to me for 2.5 months. And then the second that we started getting, and noticed that our former chair, he had another term, but self-destructed, and now I'm chair again because I was eligible. I wasn't planning to be. That's just, people overplay their hands sometimes. So if you say you want us all working together, this memo is not how you do it.
Thank you. I have Anna Fusco.
I believe I'm going to donate my time, Liliana Ruido, to Ms. Lynch.
So as soon as I call you up, we'll have Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh join us again. Thank you very much. So I have Anna Fusco. So what I'd like to do is, the next person on the list, Ms. Fusco, if you would agree to let Ms. Rito have her time first, then I can let Dr. Natalie Lynch-Walsh finish her comments.
Hello, Liliana Ruido, and I would like to donate my time to Ms. Lynch.
Thanks. You. Dr. Lynch-Walsh, if you'd like to just finish your comments. Thank you.
Okay, to continue. Again, this memo is reminiscent of the director of procurement debacle you had in December, when your staff brought you a bunch of poppycock, and I was at that meeting, and then you called down someone from general counsel's office, and they couldn't even justify the action they were trying to take. But this is worse, and I'm warning you now, it's worse. I've been warning you since I got the memo. This is bad, because you have the superintendent violating the very policies that he is supposed to be upholding, and nothing is happening, which is nonfeasance on your part, misfeasance when you take something you're allowed to do and do it the wrong way. This memo, again, has a gag order. I don't know what's going on between the superintendent and the executive director of capital programs. I'm in receipt of an email where the director tried to misconstrue and mislead a board member and claim that I was bullying and harassing him. This is not the first time I've been targeted. I have an email when I was targeted personally by several members of staff and general counsel, and I have a letter from the former head of ESC before she left, which the way it reads clearly states that they're attempting some resolution, and if I was the one in the wrong, I wouldn't be in possession of this letter, which I can dust off, and you don't want to know how many people go down with that one. So I am telling you for your own good, investigate what is happening here. Stop this targeting where they're trying to make the task force and myself sound like we're disagreeable. We were having bake-offs back in the beginning of this year. And then the second that we actually were all working together, that appears to be the opposite of what your superintendent wants. There may be some of your executive director's pride or fear of losing his position mixed in there, and I believe the superintendent is probably trying to capitalize on that. But you have to think about the rest of the staff. There is no acrimonious relationship between anyone on the task force and any of those staff members. This is being cultivated and misconstrued and created by the actions or inactions of the superintendent and your general counsel. And everybody knows what the rules are regarding disciplinary action. You pull them out using misfeasance when you shouldn't against employees, but you don't pull them out when the superintendent is doing it, and this is what he is doing. This memo is misfeasance. I don't know why you would not be acting on it in the middle of a grand jury investigation. Your general counsel is going to be subject to Florida Bar disciplinary action because she is in conflict with her responsibilities. which I included in the committee report. So
Thank you.
act now before it's too late, please.
I have Ms. Fusco. I understand that Mr. Minshew is going to donate his time. I need Ms. Preuss to allow me to let Mr. Minshew speak first to donate his time.
Terry's going to donate her time.
Okay, so
Terry's going to donate his time
Ms.
to David
Preuss?
Fletcher that you cut off.
Ms. Preuss?
Terry Lopez Price, and I will be donating my time to President Anna Fusco.
Thank you.
Hi, Anna Fusco, Broward Teachers Union President. Also Anna Fusco, Broward County resident. Also Anna Fusco voter. Anna Fusco public education teacher. Anna Fusco, an advocate for so many different people. Not just students, not just the bargaining unit members that Broward Teachers Union has, 18,000 of them. I stand before you talking about a variety of things. One, the need of adding more cameras in the classroom, which I am pleased to say that the MOU that was agreed upon with the Broward Teachers Union and the school board clearly says it's up to the teacher. I say any other extras of people able to, when I mean people, not our students, that are in the viewing of computers. They may be at a home, they may be out somewhere, and classes taking place, the student may be on, and we don't know who's behind them that is viewing in. And they're viewing into the classroom. I wish you guys would consider protecting the classroom as much as you protect yourselves up there. You certainly make it quite clear when you don't want to hear something or receive information. Students in the classroom are not going to have that opportunity because they're not going to know who on the outside is going to be filming on the inside. The teacher shouldn't be doing synchronized teaching anyway. Lori Rich Levinson, you're not a teacher. You should stay in your lane. You should have taken the wholehearted conversation from the many educators that came to meetings and gave their input. Those that need to stay home and learn remote, they have that teacher that teaches remote. Those that need to come back into brick and mortar, those students learn brick and mortar. When you're combining that, it's a disservice to everyone. And now you want to add a camera that can open up the classroom, which I will say it again. It's a safe haven for our students. And every little thing that could happen, people on the outside, they can video. And I would try to be proactive to try and handle it until something happens and then the reactions come. And then videos can be spliced, videos can be added, videos can have all different things. We're in 2020. It's all over the place. And let's talk about using names up here. I recall a meeting when 10 admins stood up here and certainly said Anna Fusco's name, one after the other. None of you stopped it. Barbara Micro has sent my name up here. You didn't stop her. It's amazing. You got parents that say teachers' names. You don't stop them. Selective is unprofessional and unbecoming of an elected leader. We might not always like to hear what happens, but we have to understand it, receive it, and face it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to do your job. I can just ask for you to just allow people to not be treated that they're the crazy one or that they're the one that's the malicious one, and maybe that there might be something that's there. And if you allow people to speak and get the message out, there might be something there. But when you keep interrupting, you keep stopping them, you do it to yourselves. That in itself is disrespectful. Nobody up there is elected more than anyone else. Well, actually, maybe the county-wide seats, because you got the county, the whole county electing you in. The constituents expect people that they elect in to be able to speak on behalf of them. And that's a part you need to remember. When your colleagues are up there speaking, they may be speaking for us that don't get a chance to speak, especially when we get a chance to step up here and you find a way to shut us down. I shouldn't have to be taking 6 minutes to explain why people need to get things across. If you just pick up a phone and answer an email back, and I know you must be inundated with emails, Lord knows I am. I have thousands in my inbox. It's the first time in my career that I'm able to return all my emails in one day. I get it. But I still do. We're in a pandemic that needs the utmost attention. And you chose to stay in an elected position to say that you're going to sign off on everything to make sure it's taken care of. So everything that needs to be spoken about, that needs to get done, there is some type of rationale, even at moments it might not sound rational. People's livelihoods are at stake right now. I was told this week that teachers will be losing their job. You told me it wouldn't happen. I called an emergency impact meeting. I have to beg to sit down and talk about that? I have to beg. But yet we got to hear still, and I know it's capital, I know it's different, it's still people hearing things that are being bought and approved when things are needed. I had to beg to get air purifiers and plexiglass. We shouldn't have to beg. It should be, how can I help?
I have Mr. Minshew.
Good afternoon. I'm going to donate my time to David Fleischer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here we go again. Are we good? Okay. Please, when I step down from here, do not condescend me and tell me that an investigation was done or that 2 investigations were done. Because again, prove it. You can't prove anywhere that an investigation was done. And I just showed you with a sheet of paper, it would have taken 3 seconds to figure out there was a problem here. And you know what that would have immediately done? That would have triggered an SIU investigation. So you need to ask every single person who I have talked to why an investigation did not occur. You need to ask Dr. Wanza what she is doing, Mr. Strauss what he is doing, Mr. LePace what he is doing, Ms. Hudge what she is doing. Every single one of you need to find out why they are protecting a principal at Everglades High School who took inappropriately hundreds of thousands of dollars from teachers. As I proved in here, there was not a single record that a teacher was compensated for covering a class from 2012 to 2019. And how do I know that beyond the record? Because I lived it. And when you tell me that my words don't matter and I'm not telling you the truth, not only am I putting myself at risk legally because I'm going to get sued for it, but it is so disrespectful. And we haven't even gotten to the part about selling stuff to kids. I haven't even addressed that yet. I'll parade hundreds of people up here if you want. Hundreds of people who will tell you what went on at that school. But you don't want to hear that. You don't want to do an investigation because you don't care. You tell us you care about the teachers. You tell us all the time, right? You have teachers going back into the classroom, and some of them might die for you. Some of them might die standing up for this district and teaching these kids, and you can't an alleged stolen microwave, and people having a consensual sexual, whatever we want to call it, okay? You guys can talk about that for hours, but you can't talk about a principal who, again, the principal at Everglades High School, who took hundreds of thousands of dollars from teachers, and from students. And again, I will prove every single part of it. Show me an investigation that it happened. Just show me. And then feel free to sue the crap out of me, because that's what's going to happen anyways, right? No. Just show it. Show me. You have a job to do. And don't get me started on your legal obligations and your liability. Remember, willful and negligent conduct, you are all potentially liable. And if I do not see an investigation, this will be escalated to the FBI and the courts.
Thank you. I apologize, the last one, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce the name correctly, but Charles-Lynn Brown.
Madam Chair, I do apologize that we have one more speaker that came in after.
Okay, if you can just have them, I guess, sign for me, thank you.
Good afternoon, Charles-Lynn Brown. I spoke at September 15th board meeting regarding my probation release. I asked the board to intervene until the EEO investigation to investigate the manager of the District Security Operations Center for retaliation and discrimination was completed. I also informed the board that I did not receive compensation. During that meeting, the Chief Safety Security Officer stated, and I had to transcribe it because the meetings was not online. Again, without going into details, from a process perspective, what I want to make you both, he was speaking with 2 board members, very comfortable with is that both early on from the process of challenges with this employee, the direct manager and the second level manager engage with employee and labor relations. So this has been a long, ongoing issue. It was not done in a vacuum. It was done in coordination with HR, not just done at the department level. It wasn't a single manager ultimately working through this by themselves. They were close with employee relations. And when the employee, meaning me, raised their concerns that were largely based on racial discrimination, we immediately pulled in the EEO team and asked them to look into those matters. But separate of the reason for release and the actual probationary release that's in front of you today, what I can tell you is that there are concerns that has been raised over an extended period of time. And as I said, we're not done in a vacuum. We're done including HR and labor relations. When I sat in the room and I listened to that, I had no idea who he was talking about, because it definitely was not me. I've never received any negative feedback about my work. Once he stated that, one of the board members began to say that she now had a level of security after hearing what the Chief Safety Security Officer said. It made her feel he had done all necessary due diligence. I would like I want the board to know that this week they will be concluding my investigation. There has been absolutely not one single document to substantiate anything that was said during that board meeting by the Chief Safety Security Officer, not one single document. I want the board to know that I do not understand how the manager of the District Security Operations Center was able to terminate me, a single mother, not only an employee of Broward County Public School, but a parent of students, simply because I did not feel like he was following COVID protocol. I listened to the board meeting on October 1st. I listened to board members say how scared they were to come into this large room. But yet, my department, we were told that we needed to work in a small room with an employee who posted on social media that she had COVID-19, and we were not made aware. And yes, I raised concerns about it because I battled cancer twice, and I'm not gonna put my life in jeopardy because no one else cares. And I did not see my manager for 2 months. My manager ignored my emails, and then after returning, he terminates me the first day I'm seeing him after 2 months. How will I be made whole is what I want to ask.
Thank you. I have Rod Velez.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rod Velez. Since July, I have asked all the school board members to be proactive and not reactive several times. And yet, here we are again in this room. I'm here today advocating for all of our children, parents, and even teachers. We are requesting clarification for the safe return to our schools, brick and mortar. There are many rumors, and speculations on social media regarding your plans to return to school, which is causing a quarrel between parents and teachers. This is unacceptable. On September 25th, Superintendent Runcie stated on WLRN, and I quote, "Teachers will teach to students who are learning remotely through Microsoft Teams. Students sitting in class won't have to be on the video conferencing all. They will be listening to their teachers directly, not through the computer. Recess is a go. Lunches will be in different places," Runcie says. Statements like this do not provide clear direction to parents or teachers. It simply contradicts what is being said at the school board meetings. I have a few questions also. So, how many breaks will the children be given throughout the day? Will you be allowing air purifiers in the classroom? I've heard rumors, but I haven't heard it from your mouths. Will you be providing all schools with automatic sanitizing stations throughout the schools? I purchased 60 for my school. I had to reach out to Ms. Bartleman to get an answer, okay? Have all the HVAC units been repaired, and are they working? Are they in safe working order? Are they fitted with MERV 13 air filters? You stated that the ones that can't accommodate them will have the next best thing. Well, that's not good enough. My kids go to Broward schools. Fortunately for my school, my kids' school is newer. It's only 10 years old. But for the older schools, they're gonna have something, the next best thing. How is that even good? Have all the electrostatic foggers arrived yet? I've been hearing that 100's been in, a couple of 100's been ordered, they haven't been in yet. School starts on Friday. What's going on with that? Will children have recess? I know Mr. Runcie said it, but will that happen? Superintendent Runcie, I would like to think you could provide a comprehensible statement and a real insight for the families and teachers of Broward County. After this meeting, in front of the news media, just like you did last week, I would appreciate if you would comment on all these topics. I know generally you guys listen to us. I know a few times we had some responses from you after, when you guys were able to talk, but it would be nice for you to respond to all of our questions. I know there was 600 comments last week and questions, but nothing was answered. So anyway, that's it. Thank you all, and have a great day, and be safe.
Thank you. Those are all of the comments that I have for those present. We have time for 2 additional written comments. Do you have any submitted written comments?
No, there were no written comments.
Okay, thank you very much. For clarification purposes, Ms. Runcie, I know we've talked about this, but it's come up multiple times now in the meeting regarding the use of the new cameras. The new cameras are being provided at the secondary level, but they are not required to be used. A camera, meaning the teacher's camera on their computer, if they so choose to continue to use it, is available to them to use as they continue to be required to have FaceTime online with their students. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the new cameras are provided as an option for teachers, but are not mandatory, and the teacher controls the use of the camera. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I just want there to be a sense that teachers, if they so choose to continue to use the cameras as they have used it through e-learning for this school year, from their desk or whatever location where they're sitting in their classroom, may just use that computer camera and choose not to use the new camera. I know that we've talked about the capacity of what the new camera does in terms of being able to follow someone if they are walking in the room, to be able to follow the voice, to be able to move. It does not pan out to the entire classroom, but again, a teacher can choose to have that off and use their computer if that's their comfort level. So I just wanted to make sure that we address that. I do appreciate Mr. Runcie, and I just want to let the public know a good deal of information was also shared, again, at Hollywood Park Elementary. So there will be additional information shared on the news. And I know we have been providing updates online.
Yeah,
As
frequently
we,
asked questions, sorry.
I was going to say, as we continue to get these questions, I would ask that staff, Ms. Koch, through Mr. Runcie, that we're making note of those questions, continuing to add to those facts, and that parents continue to monitor it. Again, as we go through this process, there is no such thing as every question has been asked and every answer has been given. This will be continuing to be a learning curve for all, and the additional feedback and questions we get allow us the opportunity to continue to improve and to have the dialogue. And with that, I think Ms. Levinson wanted to share.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question. Is recess addressed in the FAQs? And I would like a response regarding recess. I know I have brought it up personally multiple times, and many parents have inquired. I would like an answer to be supplied by staff about recess.
Valerie Wanza, Chief School Performance and Accountability Officer. So one of the things that we have explained to all of the elementary school principals is that the statutory requirements for recess, as well as physical education, physical activity, are still a requirement. So schools are working, based on the kids that are there and the staff that they have, how they will logistically do that. But they do understand that recess and physical activity education, as required by Florida statute, are still a requirement, even though we are transitioning from 100% remote to some students on campus and some students at home.
Thank you very much.
So, I think part of our biggest challenge, and we see this happening on a national scale, is where do you get the source of the truth from and what you want, right? Some people are absolutely going to rely on Facebook. They're not going to listen to television. They're not going to actually read the newspaper. They're going to listen to Facebook. And if we have other parties out there putting out, and we know this happens, information that's conflicting with what we have, it just makes it a greater and greater challenge. So you have confusion out there. Notwithstanding that, we will continue to work to educate our parents, and I would suggest to all of them, if you want to get the exact information, you need to actually go to the Broward Schools website to be able to get that, or contact your local school. If you get it from somewhere else, we're not going to guarantee that it's accurate.
And if I could, Ms. Barman, just to Mr. Runcie's point, to finish that dialogue, as parents are still having questions, many of them obviously can reach out to their local schools if it's something local, but if they have a question that's more district-wide, do we still have a portal or a place open in which parents can be submitting their questions? And if we can just redirect what that is, Mr. Moquin? Or Ms. Koch?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. There is a place on the website that is on our Back to School page, and there is a spot that you can fill out a form. You can, it's mandatory. It's not mandatory to fill out your information, but we put a question in, and then we answer those questions on the FAQs.
Perfect. And that's ongoing, correct?
Yes, it's ongoing.
Yes.
And then, Ms. Koch, your office also mans a helpline that takes calls every day. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, our switchboard picks up every call from the community, and oftentimes that's how we become aware that if a couple people are asking the same question, we better get the answer up on the FAQ. And oftentimes we need to research the answer, because the same thing with our Office of Communications. We don't always have the answers. We have to research the answers. That's sometimes why it takes a day or two to get things back to the media. But we want to make sure that it's always correct. Our switchboard operators are really having their ears to the ground to find out the questions that are being asked by the community. And so we try to supply with them all the answers that we're hearing so that they can kind of stop some of those questions right when they pick up the phone. So there are a couple of different ways that people can communicate with us, and that we're trying to provide answers back to them through various vehicles.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bartleman?
Yes, I think also part of the issue is, and I'm going to reference, when we talked about recess and PE before, it was stated that it was an equity issue and that it had to be online and it was going to possibly be in the classroom. So when the answer is, are they getting recess? Yes, but I think that's not the question parents are asking. They're asking, are they going to be outside? What is it going to look like? Those are the things they want to know, and that's where we're missing, even just in this response that just happened. Like Dr. Wanza, At one point, you said, well, we have to have equity and the cameras, that was said. So what does recess look like?
So it's going to depend on the students who actually return, as well as the number of staff, but the opportunities will still be provided.
Okay, see, but as a mom, it's my kid going outside. That's what I want to hear. And and I think this is the crux of the problem. And maybe there is a very legitimate answer why we can't answer it. But every time there are questions like that, it's like, well, the school's going to make their individual decision. It's frustrating for parents. You didn't,
I respect that.
I'm just saying, so are kids going to be outside or no?
Elementary schools are working their plans to have every opportunity for students to do that. However, we do have to be realistic about a few things, in that we have to look at the number of students who return, as well as what the staffing patterns will look like in each individual school. But there is still the statutory requirement that schools must fulfill to ensure that students have recess as well as physical activity that is required by statute.
Okay.
And so I'll just stop there.
Let me ask you, is there a possibility that my child is going to go outside? Are they going to be able to go outside?
I just answered that and said yes. You said, is there the possibility? The answer is absolutely yes.
But we don't know. For sure, it's going to depend on the school.
We will see the very first day. And as I've said multiple times in all the different conversations, a number of adjustments, that is why thankfully the board gave us the latitude to build in the early release days so that as students return in stages, we can make the necessary adjustments.
Okay, so I just want to point out that that is part of the frustration, and I know you're working hard, and I can't expect you to wave a magic wand, but as soon as those plans are made, people want to know. They want, are my kids eating in the cafeteria? We still don't know, and parents are like, those are legitimate concerns. This is their most important, this is their kid. So as soon as the schools get that out, I hope they will post it on the website. The other concern I have is going to be, and I could see this coming, the disparity as to what occurs from one school to the other. So we have to do our best to make sure that everyone's kind of receiving the same thing. And I know you can't answer it, but I just want to point out the frustration, because I get the emails, we all get the emails, we all get the phone calls, but this is exactly why. Because we can't give them an answer yet, and they want specific answers, not just a general. So I just wanted to point that out.
So, and I know that we as a board have discussed over and over, and Mr. Runcie has echoed, that equity is the intent of this district. So that if there are examples where equity is not occurring at a school, we will need to, through Mr. Runcie, immediately address equity issues. And hopefully with this phase-in, it gives us an opportunity to identify things early. It gives us an opportunity where principals or staff may be struggling with how to address things. District can give support. And, we have our cadre directors. Hopefully they can look from school to school, be able to help problem solve. I think that it is, granted, I agree, as a parent, I want to know what the school day looks like for my student when I choose whether or not for them to go back. At the same time, I want to make sure there's enough flexibility at the school so that we can give as many opportunities at each school as we possibly can. And there has been flexibility, and there have been changes and modifications, even to our e-learning. So I believe we need to continue to look to our administrators and our teachers. Our teachers are fantastic problem solvers. We want to arm them with the opportunity to be able to problem solve in the way that they see issues arise and they come up with ideas. And hopefully are able to address those at the school level. And if at the school level they can't, then they get the support they need from the district staff. I do want to say that we constantly talk about, what is this going to look like? A great deal of this is what's going to look like based on our teachers. Our teachers have accomplished more than we could have ever imagined going into this pandemic in every stage. And so as a board, we thank them for everything they've already accomplished and for all that they are getting ready to face. This is something that none of us have ever gone through before. Those of us who have been in a classroom, those of us at administrative levels, have never gone through this. So this is going to be a learning curve for all. So we want to thank all of our teachers and our support staff, our administrators at the school level for what it is you are about to walk into and for all of the wins that you're going to be bringing to our students every day, whether they continue through e-learning or they're in our brick and mortar schools. Mr. Renzi?
Yeah, yes, Ms. Corn, I would just follow up and just ask for the patience of our parents. What you may find as answers you may not have is going to depend also largely on how many students and which students come to a school. So the question, for example, is where are my kids going to eat? Well, it's possible they could eat in the cafeteria, they could eat outside, and they may have to eat in the classroom. A lot of that is going to depend on the configuration of the school, the enrollment there, how many students actually show up, what staff are available. All of those details will be worked out during the first week or so of school, but those are the options that we are exploring at each and every school. So there isn't a definitive, there's just a set of possibilities that we're working around. That's why some of the answers are drafted the way they are.
And I think at the crux of it is the consistency is the ability to do social distancing, right?
Correct.
The ability is to be able to meet the CDC guidelines that we've discussed throughout this, and that's what our administration, our teachers are tasked to be able to do as they are faced with each of these different decisions. With that, the schedule, yes, Dr. Osgood.
Yes, I just want to know if, in our conversations with the Commissioner of Education, have we thought through the total aspects of it? Because I have to have in the back of my mind the possibility that we might have to shut schools down again. So now, is that, if we get to that point, how is that decision made? Because if people start getting sick, as a human being, it's going to have to be addressed. And I just haven't heard us have that conversation. We thought we had a plan, and we were clearly using local control to open schools, and that was taken away from us. And we ended up negotiating a compromise to get people back sooner than I personally would like to have them gone back. But as I'm listening at what's going on in different areas, some schools that have opened are now closing down again because of the increase in numbers. So what is that threshold, and how would those decisions be made?
So there are two parts to that. So one is on an individual school basis, as cases arise, whether they be limited to a classroom, we'll follow our protocols for that student or that staff person. They'll go to isolation room. Their parent or guardian will have to get them. They will have to get tested. We have protocols that you can't return back to your classroom without having 2 negative tests. All of those pieces are in place at each and every school. So that could happen on a classroom basis. If there are situations that are broader in the school, we may have to end up closing a particular school for some period of time until we can ascertain that it's safe to reopen. As far as the entire county is concerned, one of the 5 gating criteria that we look at is, what phase is the county in? I believe that at the point that we begin to see serious challenges emerging in our school, that will also be reflected in where the county is, and I believe some change or adjustment would have to be made there. But certainly, there is a possibility that we would close individual schools and possibly the entire county based on the path that the pandemic makes. And I know, as I do and this entire board, the safety of our staff and our students will come first. We're not necessarily always going to just wait to hear from the state if we see a grave concern for the entire district. When we closed in March, we were the first districts to do that. And so we will certainly continue to monitor the situation. We get daily updates actually from the Department of Health that Mr. Katz and I and others review. We'll continue to do that, and should things look like they're going in a direction that is going to be problematic, we'll absolutely notify the board. We're going to be transparent with our community, as we indicated. Any outbreaks that occur in a school, we'll notify that entire school community. We also have a dashboard that shows school by school the cases that exist at that school, so everyone will have the information that they need.
And thank you, Mr. Ryan. I just think that is extremely important, because as we're seeing play out in front of us, people can have COVID and they can infect a whole bunch of people and don't get tested, don't acknowledge that they have it, and then you just start having all of these people get sick. So it is very important that we monitor, and it's very important that we have had this conversation about our plans to address it. I think that will provide a level of comfort. I know to many of the bus drivers, the teachers, and the persons that I've spoken to, some who have already previously had COVID and is concerned about getting it again. This is a pandemic that's very serious, and it's a deadly pandemic. You can't just go get a shot and get rid of it. People are still dying from it. And I just think it's important that we continue to navigate the space we're in, but we continue to give voice to the severity of this pandemic and just how deadly it really is.
Thank you, Dr. Osgood. Ms. Rupert.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Osgood, for bringing that up. And I really wanted to thank the Florida School Board Association, who sent to me several hundred PPE, gloves, masks, et cetera, that we could utilize for our employees. I sent it over to the North Area Bus Attendants Terminal for their use, and they were very appreciative. And I'd asked them to take a picture with some of the PPE stuff, so I could send that on to FSBA and thank them as well. So I wanted to, let everybody know about that, but also the fact that FSBA felt it was important I believe they sent one to each district in the state of Florida. So that was super helpful. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. So the scheduled order of business for the school board operational meeting of the school board of Broward County has been complete, and seeing no further obligation, I now adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much.